right, here we go. How's it going, man?
It's going. It's good to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Of course, man. This is Nate Floyd. He started working with him recently at an AV company. We install like video walls and speakers and stuff like that in office buildings, and pretty boring shit. But
absolutely,
you learn a lot about equipment, so
yeah,
definitely learning a lot. I could pull cables like easily. That's half the job.
Yeah,
but like learning the equipment's the other.
And how it connects and all that.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's just so much information. I came from electrical, so it's
Same.
like it's so much easier because you're just like, oh, 120 volts. Like, oh, it takes 120. Okay, plug in 120. Like, what's the amperage? The hardest part is like figuring out amperage. Like, that's the most complex part of it. And then after that, like, everything's pretty simple. But AV, dude, there's so many pieces.
Well, and there's so many like interchangeable pieces too. Like,
yeah.
I think about how many times that we've had to kind of pull an audible or call an audible to kind of, make something work efficiently because like the pieces just weren't talking together and stuff. And like that stuff that even the manufacturers sometimes don't know. Like, oh yeah, we had no idea that wouldn't interact properly with that. It's like, oh, right. Awesome. Learn something new.
Yeah. It's like when I went to Crass, they gave us these new laptops, these Apple laptops with the M1 processor.
Oh, good.
Like, don't get me wrong, this thing can render a video like super quickly for like a laptop for the size that it is. Oh. It's this super thin laptop, lightweight. Like I do this whole show on it, and it'll render a video like really quick and everything. But when it came out, Pro Tools was having trouble updates, like on the Pro Tools updates.
Bro,
like
I feel Logic, like Pro Tools always does that.
Logic was having trouble with the M1 processor, and like that's their program.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's like there was a few different things that just weren't working, and it's like I think they smoothed a lot of it out by now because it's been like a year or two since I've been there. Actually, it's been fucking 2 years, over like 2.5 years. Shit, because I started this podcast when I went there.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I did some of the first few episodes I recorded at Crass. So yeah,
like I'm just gonna do this while I'm here.
Yeah, pretty much. One of my projects was the theme song for the podcast, like the intro music. I brought a buddy in, my buddy Luis, to do guitars and the vocals, and I made an intro out of it.
Ooh.
I was like, just play me a bunch of riffs, and he's like, sat to like, oh, what do you want me to play? I was like, I don't know, just fuck around, like do like a sound check for 30 minutes,
just telling a guitar player to do a sound check.
He was so confused, like he didn't know what the fuck. Like it's like, you play riffs during a sound check, right? He's like, yeah, like do that,
just like, off the top, just for 30 minutes.
He figured it out eventually, but he started going at it, and then after I got a whole bunch of that, I started playing the guitar riffs back to him and having him sing into a different, like a vocal mic, and he was like singing to different guitar riffs to get the vocals, but the part that I used isn't even for that riff that he was singing to. I just like took it and like I literally time stretched his voice to fit like the tempo. And you can't tell because it's like you're only listening to it for like 10 seconds.
Well, and that's the magic of Pro Tools. Yeah. You're doing that in Pro Tools with Elastic Audio?
No.
What are you using?
Actually, I did do it in Pro Tools. I did. And because that was when I still was using Pro Tools. I quit using that a while ago.
I don't blame you. I do not.
You can do the same thing in Logic. Logic has that ability too, so just stretching it.
I remember when I was back in the day in school and I first learned about Elastic Audio.
Yeah.
I thought it was the neatest thing ever. And then you realize how, like you're saying, oh, you can do a bunch of different stuff. The production side, like,
yeah, you can change a whole song like pretty easily.
Like the magic of Elastic Audio, along with like just vocal processors, you can make anybody do anything. I think that's where like,
dude, that's how I don't know if you remember, but people used to take like motivational speeches or like Mr. Rogers and like make like songs out of them, or like Bob Ross. They made a Bob Ross song.
Yep.
I forgot what they were called, man.
My favorite in terms of like back in the day vocal processing and like changing shit up was the Shmo Yoho, that guy. Like he made the Climbing in Your Windows Bedroom Intruder song. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like
that's the guy I'm talking about.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking about. He just does the auto tune and like stretches their voice to like make a song. Yeah, that shit's hilarious,
bro. That was cutting edge tech back then, and now I listen to that, I'm like, bro, this is so like you could have done this so much cleaner. And
I know, and like I want to go back and see if he made any Trump ones. I would love to see a Trump one, dude. That'd be cool.
Bro, if he did one, that it's got to be fire. Because what, like, all of his melodies are actually good. Can we just like,
yeah,
that's surprising. To me.
I mean, if you know like music theory, I mean, you can make something that's catchy. You know, if you're good at tempo and like rhythm, you can make something catchy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so you just make a catchy tune and then you like kind of like stretch the vocals to it.
It's just really cool to see that, like, because that was what, 2013-ish? Like,
yeah, that was like early on. That was like, I don't know, that was like right before YouTube started getting all weird.
That was before
like censorship and all that.
That was back in the day where it was kind of the Wild West, and like you just threw stuff up and whatever hit the wall, hit the wall.
It usually didn't get taken down unless it was like just straight up porn or.
And even then, sometimes it took a while.
It took a while, yeah. It depends who reported you, you know? Now they just have AI bots scanning the language that you used. They'll play your episode through like at 8 times speed and like pick out words like, oh, he said Islam. Like
that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that. So
he said COVID. Flagged. He said, you know.
Oh man. I remember when that stuff really popped off. Like when like COVID censorship and all that weird like
Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah, wasn't real. Russian misinformation.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And they're like, oh yeah, well, you know, okay, it wasn't real.
We live in a world where like it's all there's truth to all of it, and they're just like, no, it's not real. And it's like, okay,
it's definitely real.
It's like the more time you spend telling me that something isn't real, I'm gonna look at you and be like,
yeah, well, it's not that it wasn't real. It's that they didn't enforce the law. That's the crazy part. Like, do I believe that most of like these career politicians' children's are party animals? Like, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Most of them probably
Absolutely.
are. You know, like they probably get into some crazy private parties at colleges. And shit like
their
that,
stuff's probably more crazy than anything we've ever experienced.
Yeah, like, and like they just don't enforce the law. Like it's pretty wild. I don't know.
There's power and status, man.
So many
power and status.
Slip through. Just I don't know. It's like it's almost like there's two different justice systems. You know?
Oh, bro, trust me, the scars on my wrist prove that shit. Oh my god, like it's crazy to me that the world we live in, because if you look at my wrist, I got some police brutality scars on here from handcuffs getting yanked around and stuff.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, it was a fun time, trust me. And when that happened, right, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that I'm some perfectly innocent person in this. I was inebriated. I tried to re-enter a club that had an exit only policy, like once you're out, unless you go back through the line, which I didn't want to do. So I was like, whoa, I'm confused. You let me walk out. You didn't tell me this was an exit. I just thought I was going out to, smoke. Like, this is crazy. And then they ended up, I just walked away, right?
Right.
And a friend of mine had to go close their tabs so that, security took them back inside. And the story's fuzzy on what happened inside. Like, I've heard a lot of different things from, both her, the police, blah, blah, blah. But long story short, next thing I know, she's getting carried out. Ex-military woman, carries herself very well, very dignified. Yeah. And you got 3 grown men carrying her out. Like, that's suspect. Like, especially when she's a strong woman, but like not 3 dudes strong. Okay. So of course, my dumbass, I'm like, hey, yo, what are you doing? And they're just like, angry black man. I got fucking jumped, dude. Like, I had people on me right away. I'm in handcuffs sitting there. At one point, like, a fight breaks out across the parking lot. And mind you, I'm handcuffed. I'm just sitting, hands behind my back,
right,
other side of the parking lot. Like, I'm looking across. All of a sudden, the one security guard comes up. Dude, you would have sworn he was Naruto doing the Rasengan. Only difference was my head was the fucking thing, and his attack was the ground, bro. He slammed my head into the concrete. And this is where I understand that, like, I'm a little bit of a hothead. I popped up so quick, got right in his face. I did not care that I could not use my hands. I was ready to go. I was ready to fight that guy. And then the cops, of course, they're like, oh, you're trying to fight a security guard. I'm like, okay, all right, I see what's going on here. And then
I'm trying to fight a human being. I don't give a fuck what he is.
I don't care who you are. You just slap my head into the concrete.
Trying to fight this piece of shit. I don't give a fuck what uniform
you
want to
fight me with my hands behind my back? All right, let's go. Like, that's where I was at. And dude, it like, so then like the cops have me detained, my friend detained. Another one of my friends who's a black man was with us, and like the police thought he was detained because he was standing like adjacent to us, but with his hands behind his back and just being very silent, because he knew, like, I speak up, I'm getting arrested too. And luckily, my now girlfriend was there. She stepped in with a little bit of that white privilege power going on. She's like, why is he in handcuffs? And just starts going off. Like, what is the reason for this? Like, I need to have answers. Like, you're telling me he's going to jail for the weekend. I need to know why. Right. So I'm sitting there, mind you, bleeding. Like, I've been assaulted by police. My wrist is all cut up. My head's bleeding. Like, I'm having a great time. And 30 minutes, the lead officer in this whole thing, mind you, another black man. So I'm like really feeling great when he comes up and he goes, yeah, so we actually don't know why he's in handcuffs. And I'm just like,
cool.
Because you have that realization in that moment that, like, if I was a well-to-do or privileged or wealthy person, you know you're fucked. Like, in that moment, you know it's over. But, you know, nothing happened because what am I going to do? What system am I going to fight, really? Yeah. They're like, here's the number to call to report this.
Unless you start rattling off law and, like, fucking calling, like...
Unless I got your codes for, like, this law subsection of this.
You start
thing.
asking the exact right questions and, like, intimidating them through their processes. Like, they're going to do whatever the fuck they want to you. Like,
And I'm not here to say that police are bad. All right. I know a lot of people that I'm friends with and that, like,
they have the opportunity to be bad.
It's the only... I feel like it's one of the few professions where you have the opportunity to just have a God complex that actually is a problem.
It is a problem.
Because, you know, doctors that, like, surgeons, right? They have life and death in their hands.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit different than somebody that has outright authority to shoot me if they feel I'm a threat.
Yeah, that's a different job for sure.
So it's just, we live in a very strange society based on stuff like that to me.
Yeah, I've always like played around in my head with the idea of like police term limits. Like, you can only be out there for so long, like in the field.
I love
or for a consecutive amount of time, like that's limited. You know, like you can only be out there for like fucking 8 years at a time. Then you got to go do something else, and then maybe come back for 8 years or something like that. But
you
like,
have to have a break,
dude. I've seen cops that are like, or stories, I should say. I've seen stories of police officers that have been in like 15, 20 years, and like they're just committing these crazy like offenses, like, and it's like, how is this not enforced? Like, how it happens, like I can see that, you know, they're in too long and they're fucking jaded and they see everyone as a criminal. They see good guys and bad guys, and it's like that's not good. If you're at that point, like, you should be doing something else. Like, you should go somewhere and do like a fucking I don't know. You need to chill out.
You know, I think that even if they just paid them to take a year off, right? Just that forced break. And I think I look at a lot of professions that people kind of ignore, like the mental strain. Law enforcement, huge one. Nurses as well. And like the whole medical profession. There's a lot of times that, like, I feel as though it just the creation of capitalism in modern America, well, not modern America, but like where we're at with it now and what it's doing to people. Like, you can't take time off. You can't take a year off to kind of recover. And like, if you're a police officer and you shoot somebody in the face, like point blank, you should have like a decent amount of time off to kind of get your head right. If you're a nurse and you have to watch people die, like, because you couldn't save them, you should have some time off. And we don't allow for that because, you know, we don't have the kind of time available to people like that.
Yeah.
And then if you did want to take that time, you don't have the funding. You know, your bills are still going to come. There's no help. So you basically have to deal with it. And that, you know, again, I have my own jaded opinion of police because of my experience, but I think that like they're just as lost as I am in situations like that, you know, especially if you get to that point where it's black and white to you, where it's for lack of a better term, but it's good guys and bad guys. Like once you get to that point, like it's very hard to get out of that, and especially when you're like, fear is powerful. So when you get scared, like fight or flight is real for a lot of people. Some people freeze, but like in that moment, especially if like you have the power to change it, you have the power to escape that fear. I don't agree with you, but I do understand you. You know, I do see how your mind can get to that point, and that's why I think that you need that break, that, you know, reprieve.
That'd be cool. Go like send them off to, you know, like Southern California, do some ayahuasca.
Well, I would even say send them to another country. Like let them experience the world, because I feel like that's also something for a lot of people that like, if you had a more worldview center, or even if you just saw other police in other countries, you might have like, oh, they don't have guns here. Like, that's crazy. Like, wow, I should really kind of like understand that I don't need that to do my job. Or, you know, if you could just experience more life, I feel, when you have to have such a dark job that requires so much from you and takes so much out of you, to have like a system in place that's like, hey, like officer, whatever, like I understand that you had this really traumatic event recently. We're going to send you on like a 1 month vacation over to, you know, whatever country, and just decompress a little. Obviously it's like, well, how do you pay for that? We're already spending that money.
It's like, here's Nate the mushrooms. Don't do them all at once.
Right. Like, I just feel like people, especially again, in like those industries and professions where that shit's more negative, right? Yeah. Where you don't have that exposure to psychedelics because they're evil or the devil or whatever your opinion, you know. There's so many people that think, you know, all these negative things about cannabis, right? It's like, we've learned that a lot of what people thought was fear mongering, and
it makes you lazy. It makes you want to just do nothing, dude. You just smoke and you melt into the couch. Haven't you seen those commercials?
Back in the deflated person on the couch.
Yeah. It's like, damn, that looks fun. No, it's I like the one where the kid he had his guitar on the grill. It's just on fire, and he's standing there, and he's like all sad. Like he had to do that because he wanted to smoke weed instead. It's like, all my favorite guitar players smoke weed all day long. So,
well, one of my favorite guitar players literally lit his guitar on fire. So like,
what's wrong with it? Lit a joint off the fire. Like,
but like, that's the kind of shit is like, we have this really weird, like, idea in our head. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier of like the human construct, right? Like you need to have a couch, or like societal construct, like shrooms are bad. It's like, once you kind of like take a step back and make your own decisions on those things, you might still agree. Like, oh, I need a couch, and I can't live without a couch. And that's your choice. Well, why the fuck do I have this? Also your choice. But I feel like once people start to kind of understand you're allowed to live your own life and like just be you.
You can make things up. Like, you're allowed to make things up and live however you want. Like I was raised as a Catholic as a kid, you know, and I feel like I was pretty much rejecting it the whole time, but I kind of like went along with it because my parents or my mom told me
it's your environment,
yeah. She was like, this is just how to do it, you know. This is how to live. This is how to be, you know, Catholic. It was like, oh well, if I'm Catholic, I guess I gotta do it, and like, I didn't get it, you know. I was like the kid in Bible study asking how he fit all the animals on the ark. You know, I was that kid.
So was I.
And like the fucking 14-year-old like who was in charge of us is just like, like, I don't know how he did it.
See, I was that real like infinitely too smart for my own good kid with a lot of that stuff because I went to a lot of Christian organizations that had that first answer up, right? Yeah. It's like, how did they fit on the boat? And it's like, well, the boat's actual size is something that we don't fully comprehend, and like real ready for that first question. And it's like, all right, but realistically, with the time frame you've set out, like, how did he have enough time to do all of this? Like, based on what you're saying. I'm gonna need you to ask that question again, please.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well,
like Jesus had 1 loaf of bread and 4 fish or whatever, and fed all those people.
I'll tell you this: Jesus doing stuff like that's where it gets trippy because like
it's a story, it's a myth, you know. Somehow it happened, but that's not how it happened.
And that's the I feel like it's very difficult for people to kind of rationalize and like again, it's faith versus reality, right? Some people have more faith. Some people like. I'm very curious. Don't get me wrong. Like I still believe that Jesus did a lot of the stuff that you read in those books. And I don't know if I necessarily believe one for one, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in a very inquisitive time of my life, but I see the merit of somebody that is so better than you that you want to emulate that. It's like a goal to strive for, right?
I mean, like I said, I was raised Catholic, so I understand the teachings of like Christianity and Catholicism. They kind of line up a little.
The traditions they were supposed to be.
The traditions are different, but the teachings are very like synonymous.
But I think that's where like a lot of my kind of thing is like Jesus was pretty like if you read specifically just what he did. And I did this a lot in college. I went to a Christian school. I spent a lot of time kind of trying to figure it out because you have something crammed down your throat every day, right? You're force fed all of this information about who somebody is, right? And like you can apply that to anyone. Like first time you met me, after you heard something about me, you're gonna have an impression no matter what. So I feel as though a lot of that kind of like what he did and who he is interpreted by people that really don't understand who he was and what he did. And I could be wrong, maybe I'm just a hopeful person that thinks that like this global religion is really just run by people that are failed humans, right? I really want to believe that there's some truth to that and that they really did want to do something right. But at the same time, there's so much corruption and just like bad stuff. It's hard to look at an organized religion with so much money coming in and so much money just disappearing sometimes. It's hard to kind of look at that and go, like what's going on, you know? And to each their own, I try, like I said, I strive to believe in the best in those situations because I really think that God does a lot of good in that. And I don't mean necessarily the Christian Judeo God, whatever. Full disclosure, I've done DMT and met quote unquote God in my own way. So I'm in a very weird
quote unquote God. Like they're different. You think they're different gods?
I think it's the same God, but I think okay, I'll jump onto this one since I'm on a podcast anyways. The first time I ever did DMT, it didn't really go the way I expected.
Sure.
I didn't have that breakthrough moment. I didn't meet God. And so I was like, oh, like I just felt really enlightened for a few minutes. That was cool. And then I moved out here and went on a camping trip with some friends, right? And one of my buddies was like, oh, I got DMT. And I'm like, okay, whatever, right? So we go up into the woods and I hit it twice, right? The first time I hit it, like stuff starts doing what happened the first time. I'm like, all right, whatever. He's like, you ready for the second hit? I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I'm trying to meet God. Immediately regretted my statement. Immediately. I try to describe it like, you ever have those peripherals? Like you notice like the edge of your vision. You ever like kind of really notice that? Imagine that just kind of breaking off, like a frame just shattering, and there's more. Like you suddenly realize you've been looking through a frame this whole time, and like it's not actually there. You just perceive it to be there. And then, typical ego death where you're like, I am nothing, I am everything, if that's a way to describe that. And then like I met a being, right, that I would call God, that you know, I had a sense of like, I can't comprehend you fully, like whatever is in front of me, I don't fully understand this. I have no idea. Like, it's so much bigger than my human mind.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I felt a very calming sense of peace. Just, I was not afraid. I just felt like I was in the presence of somebody that like knew me almost. And like, that's where like a lot of my like, whoa. Because before this, like I had kind of given up entirely on Christianity. I was just like, ain't nothing. All right. Like, I've been jaded. I've been hurt by the church. I've gone through all these terrible things. And then I did DMT, and it was like, that was too real of an experience. And I could talk forever about it because there's just so much in that experience that it's hard to encapsulate in words, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those experiences where I was outside of myself and realized there's so much more to me and so much more to my reality, but it's all connected with other people having that exact same experience. Like, you're living your own life. You're having your own experiences. And then I try to quantify that for myself in the sense of, I've lived almost 30 years on this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think of everybody else that is about to be 30 or is 30. And all of the life experiences between all of us collectively to that moment we've had. What? Like, that's mind-boggling. And so many people that have, you know, done DMT have a similar experience to me where they meet God or a being bigger than themselves. That's where it's like, there's no way all of our lives just happen to line up, even with that small percentage of people that have done the same thing that I've done in that sense. It's so unrealistic for us to all experience the same thing or a similar enough to have like real talking points thing. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's crazy because like on the subject of like having the same experiences and stuff, there's actually examples of ancient cultures drawing geometry that is similar to the visions that people experience when doing DMT. So if you really think about this, like if they were seeing those patterns, like they were somehow getting onto the same plane as you achieve doing that drug. Well, I don't know if they were doing the same drug, but they were having the same experience in their human brain. And like where does that information come from? At some point, like we're all similar. We're all seeing the same pattern. Like wherever that pattern comes from, like we don't know for sure, but it's been there for thousands of years because these examples I'm talking about are like thousands of years old. Like they're starting to find shit in the rainforest that's like geometry. Like why would they need geometry back then, other than to copy like the symbols of a deity or a god? Like why are they creating these symbols if they aren't important? If they didn't have machines and like cogs and doing this and all by hand, they made all this stone by hand. We don't even know how they made the stone. We don't know how they shaped it. We still don't know that. Crazy. Like there's like, have you seen the walls in Peru? The Facebook keeps showing me that shit, and every time I look at it, like I stare at that, like those examples and like all the stones that fit together so perfectly.
That
like,
shouldn't.
They shouldn't. Like there's no way to do it. It's impossible. And like how the walls curve with the same like interlocking.
And
like,
we like with all the technology we have today, we can't recreate that.
Yeah, but they're just finding new shit and like under the Amazon rainforest, like because all the deforestation that's going
happening, on. Yeah,
they're finding more and more monuments. And then the LiDAR is getting more accurate because the land clearing and all of that. And it's just getting crazy, like the amount of shit they're finding right now. And I'm excited. I'm trying to pay attention to it. But like I just think it's nuts how like that geometry still lines up with like DMT trips. Like I don't know how much evidence there is for that, but
so I've recently caught myself staring at mathematic equations playing out on graphs. I've like that's been popping up in like my TikTok and shit recently, and I've noticed that like I've been watching those very intently because there's so much geometry that I've seen that is like it's just math.
You mean like a time lapse of an equation playing out or something?
Like a time lapse of an equation on a graph just being like, okay, if you just have like one, two, like an exponential sequence, right? Where you just like feed it into itself and it creates these crazy geometric designs that
like fractals and stuff.
And that's where like so many of those parts are just it's too coincidental. Like there's too many things for it to just wow, that's one hell of a coincidence, you know?
I think our brain speaks math at a certain degree that we can't understand. We like to think that biology is imperfect, but what if it's not? What if the equations going through our brain are as perfect as math? And that's why we see these crazy perfect geometrical shapes and things, like, and why we could like make these fractals with math and they line up with the imagination flowing out when you use these drugs. Like how do those line up? Because like, there's got to be math in there somewhere, right? There has to be some singular point where
it has
the math lines up. I don't know. It has to. I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking.
No, and but I agree with you. That's
way over my head.
And yeah, we're just two guys that have noticed patterns and things that you know we've seen. But there are mathematicians and people way smarter than me that are seeing the same patterns that I'm seeing. It's just they're doing like really complicated math and like playing it out on like some sequencing.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing a drug. We should not have similar lining up experiences, right? You just shouldn't.
I mean, I don't know if shouldn't is the right word, but it's unexpected. You know, it's like a surprise. Yeah. It's like why are these things the same? Or similar? Why are they in the same category? Why are you seeing geometry?
And that's the biggest question. Because it's like, oh, well, you studied geometry in high school. Yes, but also, like, I'm not out here looking at, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, suddenly throwing out, like, a bunch of crazy, like, geometric patterns because of that formula. I'm just like, oh, that's a triangle. Cool. But, like, somebody doing, like, super high-end math is seeing what I'm seeing when I'm just, like, doing some shrooms, like, or like DMT. That's brother, like, unexpected for sure. Unexpected for sure.
It's strange how it all matches, but I don't know, man. Have you seen the geometry of like the Egyptian face sculptures, like how it's all symmetrical and like,
dude, their math, like what is it, the cubits or something like that? Their unit of measurement that like is in 12s but perfectly lines up with so much stuff.
They had help, they had help.
They had something.
But like, who did they get help from? They claim the Anunnaki, but it's like, what are the Anunnaki? There's no evidence they existed other than like writings,
There's just so many, and that's again. Maybe I'm just an optimist for the things I grew up experiencing, but that's why I'm like, there's definitely a God that interacted at some point on our level, or something bigger than us that interacted on our level.
Yeah, maybe even physically. Because all of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, all of the gods are depicted as bigger than the humans.
And that's why I think about somebody like Jesus could have had some powers if God really came down and did some stuff, right? Now, we want to say that however you want to look at it, whatever your interpretation, however you want to depict the story, right? There's hyperbole. There's, things that we weren't there for, so we don't know. But there's a lot of things that a lot of people that weren't necessarily in these stories that were just in that time also see. And that's where a lot of like I can't wait till we invent time travel. I doubt we ever will, based on as physics kind of prove that it's not really doable right now with what we know. But I I hope that I live to see the day that we can like kind of get a glimpse into what really happened.
By the time we invent time travel, we're probably going to respect it enough to like
not go back,
not fuck shit up. Or if we are going back, it's like what we're seeing now with these UFOs or something like that, where they're coming back to observe and fucking up and crashing because you know, they're biological. And you know, how could a biological being be perfect? Like at some tiny degree, there is some sort of perfection in the universe in order for everything to exist the way it is. You know, like the fucking, like all the neutrons and protons and electrons have to line up in the right way for everything to actually adhere in solid forms. Like something is perfect in this universe. We don't know what it is yet, but it can't be aliens.
That's true.
Aliens have to crash too.
And
like, I don't know. We don't know what's going wrong, but they're crashing.
And that's the part that blows my mind is like everything that we experience in terms of biology, there's some level of imperfection. There is, like, always. But then you look at the universe and how many evidences of some level of perfection. Like, I forget the name for it right now, but there's this one ring galaxy, right? Ring galaxies are super rare. There's one that's got this object in the center, and I wish I could remember what it is right now. I think it's like Hoff's object or something like that. But it's like this big circular galaxy or ring galaxy that is a perfect ring and then a perfect like spherical thing in the center. Yeah. We have no idea what it is, but like that doesn't just happen, you know? Like there's, from what I saw, and I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert. I just saw a couple clips that I was like, ooh, universe, exciting, interesting. Ring galaxies are super rare, first of all, and they're never perfect. So to find one that is perfect, how?
I don't know. I mean, the vastness of the universe says that
bound to happen.
This should exist infinite a number of times. If the universe is infinite, like no matter how rare it is, it should happen more than once.
True.
If the universe is infinite.
Correct. But I guess my question is, how did we, in our finite scope of humanity, manage to see it?
We're just next to it. I don't know. We're close enough. And when I say next to it, I mean within the visible light scope.
Yeah.
Like if you think of that as think of like how far we can see with the James Webb telescope, right? And then like draw that into a sphere. Is there anything beyond that? Like probably.
Definitely. Like based on our understanding of the universe.
We say, we've seen the oldest galaxies. It's like
are we sure?
I guess like maybe.
Are we sure? Like we see what we presume to be the Big Bang, but do we see?
Yeah, we were like 100% sure the universe was 14 billion years old. Right? Now it's like, well, it might be 27 billion.
It's like a massive gap.
We're getting data from galaxies that look like they're twice as old as they should be. It's like they're too far along in their life stages to be as young as they or as old as they are, you know, or as young as they are. So it's like, man, this galaxy shouldn't be as far along as it is.
So it's
not that we know the galaxy's older now. It's that we've gotten data that doesn't match up with the 14 billion year timeline.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Like maybe we don't know how galaxies are formed yet. Or maybe the universe is older. Like it could be one or the other, you know?
Or it could be a whole separate thing that we don't comprehend yet too. Like just the addition of antimatter into that equation. Like
both, dude. We don't know anything. Like we have vague ideas of what space is.
For real though, I feel like the more science like learns, the more we don't understand.
We're still disputing how the moon was formed. Bro. Like we don't even know how our own moon,
and it's right there
because it's so strange. It's such a weird moon compared to all the other moons like of Saturn and Jupiter. Like they're just captured, you know, and like
they're there.
Yeah, they were captured like by these gas giants. Like Earth has this gigantic fucking chunk of a moon like circling around it, literally causing gravitational effect on it. Like what other moons do that, like that we've seen, you know? It's a pretty fucking unique object.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. And we just don't know how it was made. Like we don't know how. We have theories. Like there's a few theories, but they're just unprovable because it's like 2 billion years old or something. Like
and
even
just
more.
that, like, oh, it's like 2 billion, maybe like
probably 3.5 billion,
right?
Because Earth was probably a piece of magma when the moon was created.
Even though, like, let's just say 4 billion for the sense of like math, right? You got 4 billion. The universe itself, at the youngest we presume, is 14. So like, there's so much more that existed for 10 billion years before that. Like,
yeah,
dude, when you realize the scale, it hurts your head.
I mean, we just guessed like 14 billion, but like what? Like, I mean, the Earth formed at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, it was like, getting bigger. Or did it start as a rock that like collapsed in on itself? Like I can't physically picture how the Earth was created, but they say like, oh, it's 4 billion years old.
And that's, oh man, that's why, back to our like silly earlier conversation, time travel, right? Like I want to see it. Like I want to understand, because we have all these theories of things that happened.
Yeah.
The creation of the universe, the creation of religion as we know it today, the creation of modern society. Like, I would just love to see some of those moments and how they really played out. Because we think we know, right? We got history books, but we don't actually know. History always has two sides. The only one you hear is the one that won. So, like, what are some of the things we missed out on? Or even looking back to like the burning of the Library of Alexandria, like,
yeah, man,
so much knowledge was lost. Like, I want to have a peek behind the curtain. You know what I mean? And I understand that like I am in no position to really have that peek. I don't do anything to find it. But man, like, I want somebody to figure it out so I can know,
I just want somebody to fucking take down that dude who keeps hiding all the Egyptian secrets. I forgot his name, but he's like the head archaeologist in Egyptology. And he's like revered by the country of Egypt, but he's such a dick, dude. He just he keeps kind of finding like, oh, I found this new discovery. Like, I know he's fucking sitting on a bunch of shit that he's not revealed to the public. Like, there's so many stories that are just so sketchy about this dude. Like, oh, I should look up his name.
No, dude, I really want to, like...
He's, like, one of the people who, like, somebody will have, like, a differing theory on the pyramids, and he'll be like, no, that can't be possibly true.
But why?
Yeah, and he's just no reason. Like, because they're only 5,000 years old.
I really like.
It's like, I don't believe that, dude.
I hope when he and like, this sounds so morbid, but I hope when he dies, like, a bunch of shit just starts coming out. Like, I really like, that sounds so bad, but like, I want answers, and if you're hiding them until your death, bro, I can't wait for your death. Like, I say that in like the most.
He's probably got some shit in his will that's like, burn these 4 boxes.
Well, and then the question becomes, do you do it? Like,
Egypt will.
Well, Egypt will, but will the motherfucker that's supposed to execute do it? Because I think about that kind of stuff all the time. All it takes is one person that's like a little bit more modern thinking or a little bit more curious than he should be.
Yeah.
It's only one guy. It's never like the whole system. It always comes down to one guy. Like, all you got to do is light the match. Imagine if that guy's just like, let me read this first. And then just reads a bunch of shit, puts it on the internet. And now, like, the world's different.
Yeah. I can't. What would it be like if we figured out how they manipulated stone? What would change,
And that's the question. Like, if it was some kind of, fields, right? Like magnetic fields, or like they somehow figured out a way to create and manipulate fields.
Frequencies.
Or something like that. If they figured out how to do that, how? It opens up even more questions.
I heard it was with sound waves, like air modulating frequencies, which would be sound.
So if you can have some kind of harmonic resonance that's powerful enough to like carve stone.
Maybe it's not about power. It's just about a specific frequency, you know, or a combination of frequencies. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if there is something
the math
that's
in the frequencies?
yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I've seen data on that. I've seen people talk about that. When I try to read those papers though, it starts to sound like magic and it starts to sound like they're making up words. And like there's just so much in that well of knowledge. I feel like if it's real, there might actually be people just trying to muddy the waters because it would change so much.
And it would open up so many more things, you know, like especially
how much would be free? How much would be free if you could just play a frequency and manipulate stone, turn it off, and it's hard? How much would be free if you could just do that? You could build houses. You could
like,
just
with no effort.
You could do anything you wanted, like with stone. Okay, well, now structural building is
that's
no
different,
longer a
but
problem.
I'm sure based on like sound itself, because of the way that sound operates, I'm sure there's frequencies they could also manipulate those materials as well. So that you're opening up a huge Pandora's box there where it's like if you can manipulate stone with sound, what else can you manipulate with sound?
Like metal.
I mean, we've shattered glass with sound
because metal corrodes. So if they can manipulate stone, if they could manipulate metal back before the Great Flood, the Younger Dryas impact theory or whatever, you know, any metal from that time would be gone by now.
Because it washes away.
Yeah, it'd be corroded through like oxidation. It'd be pretty much gone, like, or buried. I don't know, but we haven't found any like metal tools. But it's like the only metal tools we've found are from a specific time period and forward.
Yeah.
So it's like if they had any metal back then, like would it be gone? Like you know, wood is anything they made out of wood before like 11,000 years ago, gone, completely gone. So it's
making my brain hurt, man. Because you're right. There's so, and again,
just so much mystery to it.
That's why, like, I go back to what we were saying earlier. There's so much that I wish I could see myself because there's just not answers that make sense to me, you know?
Yeah.
I really want to see how a lot of this stuff played out. I understand that, like, we have documentation and whatnot, but again, like, imagine the amount of debates you answer just witnessing one or two miracles of Jesus, right? Just witnessing those events in a modern society with that scope. Imagine how much changes. Because he's either a fraud or he's real. In that moment, you see it and you have your answer right there. And then.
What if you witness the moment, like, you know, John wrote those things? You know, how much of what he was writing was what he was experiencing? You know, like how much of it was hyperbole?
And how much of it, like, how much really, because if you look at we'll just start with the Gospels.
Is there a book of Jesus?
Allegedly.
So Jesus wrote?
I don't know if it was written by him. It's kind of like a lot of those like mystery books and letters that are hidden in the Vatican, which is a whole nother.
It's not a good start. It's not a good start, dude.
That's
he's like the world's greatest teacher and didn't write a book.
Well, and that's why I'm thinking, I'm sure that he has writings. I'm also fully convinced that the Vatican has them, because the Vatican has a lot of stuff that just
maybe, yeah.
Think about it. There's not public access to most of the library in the Vatican.
What if they sound totally radical? Like his writings are just sound crazy, and they're like, we cannot let this go.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Is like that's
like,
why.
Whoa, like a couple sentences.
Can you
just
imagine if you just like? Well, because and again, I haven't read a lot of this stuff myself. I've done research, quote unquote, where I've like been in environments where people should have the right information, but you never know. Yeah. About who Jesus was when he was like a teenager and stuff, and like. Honestly, if even 50% of that is true, teenage Jesus was a savage, dude. Like, absolute savage. Like, some kid bullied him and he turned him into frogs type of shit. I'm like, bro, if that's real.
That can't be real.
But what
There's
if it
no
is?
way.
No,
There's
think
no
about it. Because
way,
he's supposed to be God, right? So imagine if he, like, as a kid growing up, had access to that power. Think about that. think about what you'd have to overcome to be normal. Think about what you'd have to overcome to be that centerpiece, to be that person.
This is assuming those things are possible, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And if they're not, who's writing about a teenager that's turning people into frogs?
I don't know. I mean, we write things about a guy with an adamantium skeleton who can like crawl back to his body from miles away and heal himself together, you know?
So many more questions.
But it's like, that's the thing. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, are they stories? Or like, we have to assume those things are real. You know what I mean?
And that's the problem with a lot of that stuff is
we haven't seen it repeated.
And the question is, can we see it repeated? Because if there truly was,
doesn't look like it.
Based on its own admission, like there's only one Son of God. Jesus is the only one. So like, based on their own admission, he would be the only one that could do a lot of what is claimed.
Yeah,
he could be the only one based on his standard.
Right.
But what, again, like what you're saying, what if there's a lot of smoke and mirrors we're not seeing? You know, what if there's a lot of moving parts that we just didn't have, you know, the prying eye to? That's, you know, that again, that's the argument of fact versus faith and whatever else you want to get into. But that's why I want to see it. You know, I want to understand. But then I think about like relating this back to sound, right?
Yeah.
And like the whole thing. What if sound is so powerful, or frequencies themselves are so powerful, that we're not looking in the right way? And we really could get those windows because of that. You know, if you can carve stone with specific frequencies that do certain things, what else can you theoretically do with the movement of airwaves at different intervals? You know, frequencies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that's being suppressed in that category, as far as like how everything vibrates at a specific frequency, and
everything.
There is probably a way to manipulate that. And I feel like if there is a way, there would absolutely be a fucking concerted effort to keep that away from the public, because that would make anybody...
It would change the world.
That would make anybody, like, able to do anything. There would be no control anymore.
And what does that... Like, the question is, what happens then? Does everyone just, you know, is it utter chaos and calamity? Or do people...
It would absolutely be utter chaos and calamity. Going from a society like this to a society where anybody can do anything, it would be a fucking nightmare, dude.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, no, it'd be pretty crazy. Yeah, you're right.
We're like little children,
but I
given
think
a
about
fucking
that kind
assault rifle.
Like, I think about like before the advent of the modern tuning scale, right? Music. Yeah. You know, we tune to A440. That's how all of our frequency stuff is laid out in modern music. And then when it like, I think 2015 or 2016 is the first time I really heard about it. The debate between A440 and A432, and like just
I've heard of that.
The different ways that like like intonation works on your brain, on your body, how like certain frequencies as you go up the scale suddenly change.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, you know, you look at all the classical composers and like Bach, Beethoven, all of them, and you look back and a lot of them did not have that standard tuning yet, that standard intonation. And it's like, that brings up a whole nother question of what did your music actually sound like? We have writings of it, but if you didn't have that standard tuning that we have today, what did it actually sound like? What if your piano was like, because middle C is approximately 242 hertz, or hertz in terms of your frequency. A440, 440 hertz, right? Those two are standardized intonation, right? That's what we base everything off of. But what if you change it? What if like you don't have A440 as your base? What if middle C isn't actually 242? What if it's different? You know, it completely changes music as a whole.
It's like changing the math. You know, it's like, what if we counted by 8 instead of 10?
And or 12
or 12 instead
of 10.
Yeah.
And that's where the internal like conspiracy theorist in me really kicks off the question of like,
I've heard of the conspiracy.
Why was that the choice? Because there's a lot of things I've seen in science that prove that we create more dissonance in A440 than we do in A432. Why would we willingly choose to create dissonance instead of harmony?
It's the fucking lizard people wanted to
keep Mark Zuckerberg out of this.
Keep us fucking stupid.
Keep him out of this. I don't want to talk about Mark Zuckerberg. It's the same
reason they pour fluoride into the public water supply. It's the same reason they fucking gave us TikTok.
Listen, bro, I'll tell you right now, giving me TikTok has been the worst thing for my ADHD ever, because I'm like,
it's for ADHD. Dude, that's what it's for.
We are they are manufacturing ADHD now, because my attention span got so much worse until I realized.
Oh yeah, man.
Holy shit.
These Facebook Reels are killing me.
Well,
I've always been on Facebook. I've never really gotten it. I never downloaded TikTok. I never really got into Instagram either. I just stuck with Facebook, and ever since they came out with the Reels, it's like, man, I'll find myself scrolling. It's like,
and you find good stuff there too.
I do find really cool stuff. I found a lot of podcasts there, and I found
good clips from stuff.
A lot of info. I found help for this podcast, even ideas and stuff. So it's not useless, but
and TikTok's really powerful. When I started using it in a way that was more so to find things that inspire me to do the things that I love and that make me a better engineer or technician.
It can be a useful tool,
but there's so much crap in between that, and that's the thing is
boobies. It's pretty hard to forget about that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of
that'll stop
well-endowed women on a lot of social media platforms, and all respect, all respect. I'm saying that totally
I'm just saying it distracts me from what I want to do, man. I'll stop.
I'm not here to oogle you. That is not. I'm just you put that out there, and it's I'm an adult man. It's hard to be oh yeah, ignore, and I
just keep scrolling trash. Then I'm gonna be
when I'm really on my ADHD grind, doesn't register. I'm music stuff where when I get fixated, you know what I'm talking about? Where you're oh, I gotta figure this out.
Well, I'm not on Facebook when I'm trying to figure something out though, so I'm usually in the middle of trying to figure things out, which means I'm procrastinating. So I'm just sitting there scrolling Facebook, just go up, oh, cool dog video, cool fucking,
Bro, the animal videos get me. You're usually heartbreaking, and I'm usually sad after.
I just like the ones where they're fucking retarded. It makes me feel a little better when they're fucking up really bad, and you can tell the animal is just
I'm here. I'm sorry. This is me.
Yeah, and it's great. I don't know. I like when a cat dives off a table, just face first.
Dives into a window.
Gold. I could pass on the cute ones where it's a kitten snuggling up. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, I want to see that. Get me are the sad ones and then the funny ones.
Yeah.
I don't care about the cute ones. I'm glad you have a kitten. Cool. I don't care.
Yeah. Unless it's
your kitten jumped into the window and smacked himself off of it. Hilarious, actually.
Oh, it fell into the aquarium. Great.
That's high quality content. High quality.
It's had a traumatic experience. Excellent.
That cat will never touch that window ever again, but I'm glad you got that.
Grabbed onto the ceiling fan and spun around 7 times. Awesome. Perfect, dude.
Oh man, you put for real though, that's the stuff that makes it hard to get stuff done, because it's
like watching
fun.
Car crashes, I don't watch live streams of the traffic lights working perfectly and people just going through traffic. No, I watch the ones where people just and everything gets fucked up, dude. Glass everywhere. Man. That's the ones I watch.
Bro, I feel so bad when I watch a car accident. And I don't say that as somebody that goes out seeking them. But if you ever see one in person, like you're saying, you just can't look away. And I feel like a bad person, but I'm this is mesmerizing.
I guess I chalk it up to I just enjoy physical chaos, just everything crunching. Like,
bro, that's why I like football. I love watching somebody knock the snot out of somebody else.
Well, it's not even a violence thing. Like, because I literally block out the people. Like, I do not think about the people or the injuries.
I was going to ask you about that. And I remember we talked about it, but like for a second there, I was like,
no, like I prefer, like, I just think if the cars were empty. Like, I honestly don't think about the people. Like, I can't, because it's disgusting and it makes me sick. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't do it, dude. But then you think about car versus car, you're just like, oh, somebody's leg breaking. It's like, okay, saw that once. I don't need to replay that.
Oh, like, dude, like
I get it.
Oh, you know? that's
like,
one
I got
thing.
That. But like for car accidents, it's more like, like I like seeing big machinery fall.
Oh, I love that
like
shit. Yeah.
Things that are like gigantic or like heavy structures just getting crunched and like being disformed. It's like the power behind that,
or like an avalanche, or like a rock slide.
Yeah, dude, rock slides.
Those things,
or like tsunami videos.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I don't know. Like, I don't think about all the death.
No, and that's
destruction.
I fully understand that, because I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And then like somebody's like, wow, the people. I'm like, please don't remind me.
Yeah,
like,
I don't want to think about the guy under that rock. Like,
that's unfortunate.
Like, I saw a rock the size of a bus tumbling down a hill. Like, I wish I could see that in real life. Like, in person, dude, if I could see that in person, like, the adrenaline rush from that would be insane.
I mean, I think about when I've seen like crazy shit happen in real life. Like, I witnessed a car accident and I went running right up to it. It was back in the day when I was a lifeguard. I thought I was hot shit. I was CPR certified. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can help people. And like, thank God there were
doing nothing.
I mean, that's true. But thank God there were more experienced people that had like experienced life.
That's my goal, is to find the most experienced person. That's my goal every time, because I cannot deal with injuries and shit. Well, I can't, dude.
My thing is, there's a lot of injuries that like I can handle and it won't bother me. There are certain injuries though that like you can have a bone out of your leg and I'm gonna kind of just not.
I'll block it out.
Like, that'll be fine to me. But if you have like your eyes messed up or some shit, nope. It's a huge thing for me. I can't do eyes. Like, eye injuries, nope, can't do it. Anything else, I'm like, oh, that sucks. Let me help you. But like,
I feel like I would be all right in the moment, but that would fuck me up later, dude. That'd be pretty bad later on.
Well, full disclosure on that one.
Stop thinking about it.
Like, eyes freak me out because I was in science in like 9th grade, and we're doing an anatomy unit, and we got to see a live autopsy. I'm pretty sure it was pre-recorded, but live autopsy. Sure. And they cut the eyeball open, and ever since then, man, I've just been like, nope.
You just remember that one moment,
dude. It's scarred into my brain. It looked like a black egg. 29.
Okay. No, how old were you
when that happened? 14.
14.
Yeah. So for 15 years, like, eye injuries, can't do it.
Showing a 14-year-old an eyeball getting cut out.
To be fair, I used to be one of those like advanced kids where like, so I was ahead in science where I should have been.
Oh, okay.
So like, yes, showing 10th graders that is also still like a little like, bro. But
it's like the whole class, like, if you want to like be interested in like eye surgery, this is something you're going to have to do.
Well, it was more so like, I went to one of those schools in like a smaller rural community that has just like way too much money for themselves. Like, I'm pretty sure they just bought another football field. They did a massive theater expansion recently.
Like all the schools in Queen Creek right now.
Yeah. Like,
they just have way too much money.
And they have to spend it. So they're just like, fuck it, new wing in the school. Like, why not? And, you know, I was very blessed to go there. But I realized that like there's a lot of stuff that like I just wouldn't have seen, not because like it's bad to see necessarily. It's just like the funding to be exposed to that kind of stuff wouldn't have been there. Yeah. And like, cool that I'm very thankful for the education I got and the things that I know and all of that. But also, yeah, there's some things that I'm like, why did I have to see an autopsy when I was a kid? And why is the eyeball the thing that stuck with me? Like, that's the part that really never.
I don't know. I can't remember anything like specifically, and like, because like we dissected animals and stuff.
Oh, I remember dissecting a fetal pig.
Yeah, we dissected a pig. I think I did a frog too at one point, but like it wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't that bad. I didn't really care. See, there were people that were like freaking out in the class, and I was just like, whatever.
The fetal pig, did not bother me. Like we're cutting that thing open and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just like, like this is just little bacon or some shit.
Honestly, it was
like,
fucking boring. I had to follow instructions. That's the most boring thing in the world, dude.
Yeah. Now ours was like, here's the printout, go at your own pace, which was.
Yeah, it was like that, but you had to like follow the instructions, you know? It's kind of like.
You didn't get to just carve your own path typist.
Yeah, well, it wasn't anything interesting. You know, it was like, I have to be here for an hour. We spent 10 minutes of it gloving up. We have like 20 minutes to go through this worksheet. And like, there's no like time, you know, you're just sitting there. Like, you're not actually learning. You're going through motions. Like, that's the one thing that I fucking hated about school all the time. It's like, oh yeah, you're learning. It's like, no, we're pretending to learn. Like, we're just looking like we're learning. Like, you're not actually teaching us shit. You're just going through a fucking curriculum. You got a job as a babysitter who goes through a lesson plan. Like, it's not actually teaching anybody.
Well, and I do feel for teachers because I know
they want to teach.
Like, I know a lot of teachers that like really want to like
their hands help are tied.
Yeah, and that's gonna open up a whole nother conspiracy conversation.
In the public school, their hands are tied. Like, they're not allowed to teach certain things.
And then you look at the private sector.
They like cut shop out of everything. Like, okay, kids can't build anything anymore. Yeah, you know how that's gonna go?
Don't even get me started on that. That's gonna be pretty bad. Don't even get me started on that.
You don't know how to build a fucking like shelf?
Bro, it's crazy to me how little kids now know. Like, I'm not trying to be rude when I say that, but like a lot of, even in my own family, like the things that the kids that are younger than me don't know how to do. Or even like my girlfriend doesn't know how to sew, right? Like with a sewing machine. And I made a whole bag when I was in high school. I had to take home ec. It was part of the thing. So like, yeah, I can use a sewing machine. I never realized that was like a useful skill, right?
I don't know how to use a sewing machine.
Bro, and that's why I go back to like, I'm very thankful for my school and my educational standing there and like the things that I was exposed to. I just never realized. Like,
you know what's the craziest thing? And like, I'm reminded of this all the time, especially being an electrician. When I was in 8th grade, I had this science teacher. He was a fucking asshole. I didn't like him at all. His name was Mr. Farrier. He's like this old dude. You could tell he hated the students. Oh, yeah. It's like he didn't want to be there. Like, he was just there because he had tenure and he could just fucking...
He could do what he wanted, yeah.
He could work and live and it paid his bills. And you could tell he did not give a fuck.
Yup.
But he taught these lesson plans that were like older, you know, like...
From his day.
Not from his day, but they're maybe from like the 90s or something, okay. You know, and I was like in middle school in like the 2000s. So he had curriculums that were like, he literally handed out all of these old electrical boards and like, you know, like the do-it-yourself electrical circuits. And like we learned electrical circuits
in
for
science.
Like a whole like 2 months. We had this course on electricity.
That's
and
dope.
Like electronic circuits. And like that's stuck with me for so long because like we're always using electricity constantly. Dude, all the time. You're always turning things on, turning them off, like, oh, connect this, plug this in. And like after that lesson, like I knew what I was doing. You know, it's not just, oh, power needs power. Like, no, this voltage, it goes one way and comes back the other way 60 times a second.
Yeah.
You know, like fucking like there's
math.
Physical
there's
thing
all
happening.
This that happens.
You know, we played with the physical thing that happens with electricity when I was like, what, 12, 13?
Yeah, very impressionable. And it stuck with you.
And it did stick with me. And like, it literally stuck with me all the way to when I took the test for the Navy, to the ASVAB, to see like, you know, what kind of job you should have. So I took the ASVAB and scored like super fucking high because they had some electrical questions on there. And like, I don't know, like the English part was a joke. I feel like I soared through that. Like, it's so stupid. But I don't know. I guess I feel like that part helped me out a lot as far as like scoring high on the test. Like, a lot of people get the electrical questions wrong. But it's like, it's such an easy like concept.
Once you get it though.
But they don't teach it in public schools.
That's
what blows me away. Like, I constantly ask people, like, whenever I think of that lesson I had in 8th grade, I'm like, did you ever do any electrical in high school? Like, did you like learn about electricity at all or in any part of school? And they're like, no, never. We never went over a single electronic circuit in public school. And it's like,
that's crazy.
Everything we use has a circuit.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we teaching electricity?
I mean, why don't we teach probability? Why don't we teach statistics at like at the lower levels? Why aren't we making sure people understand, certain, I personally, and like this might sound mean, I would rather have learned how to do my taxes in school than trigonometry.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, I probably could have got away without trigonometry.
And like, I get it. There's certain professions that you unexpectedly use trigonometry. That's fair.
How about a very shortened lesson of trigonometry?
Well, I mean,
introductory to trig.
Make it an elective, right? Make it something I can choose to do.
Or I'm just saying, like, literally a month of trig. Here's how it works. Here it is. Here's your exposure. Mm-hmm. Not a whole class, a whole year to trig. What?
Yeah, but remember, a whole year for trig, but you can't do your taxes. And that's something that affects your life guaranteed no matter what every day.
You could teach me how to do my taxes in a month. Like school is so stretched out to me. When I look at how school is like organized or like scheduled, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're spending entire years teaching the same thing every year. Like, I didn't learn anything in English after freshman year. I went through this crazy English class. It was like advanced English. And my teacher, her name was Miss Canaday, and I hated her too. But she was amazing.
Man,
she was actually, she was good. Like, she challenged us, but like probably a little too early.
Bro,
compared to the rest of the school.
Dude, as I get older, there's so many teachers that I realize I took for granted or didn't say the right things to.
I knew at the time she was good.
No, there were some that I knew were good at the time too, and like I just didn't, but like
the amount of work that she made me do was just incredible. That's why I was like, that's why I hated it. Because like I hated homework. I stopped doing homework after 4th grade, and that got me in a lot of trouble. And like in that class especially, because she constantly gave papers to write, and like your
homework was initially a punishment
on this thing.
Never forget that.
On that. But I learned so much in that class so quickly about analyzing like movies, literature, like analyzing anything that has to do with written works in entertainment and anything like in that one class. Anything after that, didn't even touch that level. Yeah. So it's like I learned all of that in 1 year. I even I think I failed that class. I failed that class. I had to take a summer school after that. But I still learned more in that failed class. Wow. I learned more in that failed class than I did in the rest of high school.
Isn't that impressive? Now, I think about teachers that challenged me myself that at the time I didn't understand it. Like I had this one guy, Mr. Winters. I'll never forget him. And Mr. Winters, if you see this, thank you so much for everything.
He won't.
I know.
He won't.
But that dude, so mind you, like he was my first exposure into like somebody that really science was everything for him. Like he lost his arm, and I say that kind of tentatively because he still had it, but like it was very deformed, and like he didn't have full use because he was in a motorcycle accident. So he only had one like fully functional arm, and the other one was just always in his pocket, right? I'll never forget this dude because he was the only teacher to ever really push me. And like, he was the first teacher because my mom was super Christian. I grew up in a very Christian household. He was the first one to really make me start questioning stuff. He was the first one to really be like, yeah, but why? And up until then, I had never, oh my God. Spirits.
Yeah. Let's take a break real quick.
All right. Sounds good.
Fix this light.
And I think it was like Isotope RX. That was great.
Yeah, that's the one I use. I use RX-8.
RX-8? Oh my God, I'm so old.
They have 11 now.
Bro, I'm so old.
Yeah.
The last time I like regularly used that was when it was 4. 4 was like the new guy.
It's pretty badass regardless. Like, I don't need 11. 8 works, dude. I have it.
That's the way I look at like Pro Tools 11. It was probably peak Pro Tools after they got the bugs out of the initial version. And then they're just like, we're going to keep going. It's like, but why?
I don't know. Because they want money.
Listen, Avid does really good stuff in the live department. I'm an Avid fan, like for real. But stop making Pro Tools so difficult to work with.
I didn't like it when I was in Crass. I didn't like working with Pro Tools. I liked Logic better just because of the things I'm doing. I don't need them for all the crazy things that Pro Tools can do. Like, I will never use that program to its max potential. And like Logic, I can click and drag things so much easier. Like, so much easier. Like, everything is just so much easier to find. And I can see why Apple bought it.
Yeah, no,
it like fits sense. Right in line with their product line. You know, like it looks like an Apple product.
If I didn't realize that they bought it, you could have told me Apple developed Logic, and I would have been like, yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
it looks like an Apple product already.
Yeah,
but it was complete before they bought it.
That's what happens when you got the money, or I guess the smarts to earn the money.
They found something that looked just like them, and they're like, oh, this is perfect.
This is exactly what we wanted.
Let's take it. And then they made GarageBand, and that's like fucking child's play. It's like GarageBand is frustratingly simple.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes I've had some good stuff come out of there, but other times I'm like,
it's like easy to like fuck around and just make some stupid shit.
I feel like they just have a bunch of samples that are easily accessible. You know what I mean?
And they all kind of match. They're all kind of like 4/4 or whatever. They're all easy to work with. But that's like the appeal of it, you know. You don't have to be a fucking music producer to make a song. You can go in there and like click and drag and make some shit, and like that sounds like a song.
Yeah, it's almost a song. It's like a half song.
Nowadays you could just tell ChatGPT, "Oh, make me a fucking Drake song."
Now you can make like half a song, send it back to ChatGPT, and they're like, "You're an idiot. Here's a better version."
Yeah. Oh, you could have done it this way. And it like spits out the exact song you were thinking of in your head. You're like oh my god.
Bro, I genuinely hope I never figure out how to use ChatGPT to make all the songs I think in my head a reality, because I'm gonna just quit doing anything else. I'm gonna just spend all day writing songs.
I was actually looking up the other day on turning like whistling into MIDI. So you just like whistle into a microphone and like it comes out as MIDI. And this isn't new technology.
No, it's not.
They've had this for a long time. But
it's just like
I wanna practice that and get good at that. You know, like make like what do I need? Like what kind of settings do I need to make it like exactly the parameters I want for each note to start and stop, and like how do I make it as clean as possible and as easy to use? Like if I could just hum a tune into a mic, you know,
it'd be
just
so
like, turn this into MIDI and then like make that an electric guitar,
dude. Like, so one of my old bands, we actually did not all, but most of my actual physical drum work was MIDI. And I say that in the sense that I think it was back when I was in the band Kings and Kingdoms. Super fun time in my life. Love those dudes. I don't really talk to any of them anymore, which breaks my heart a little bit, but great dudes. When we were recording our EP that turned out to be our final album type deal, I went to my buddy Nick Borges in Buffalo. Hell of an engineer. Dude's wicked smart. Like genius smart. And I love Nick because he's just like one of those guys that like you'll track, he'll stop like the take and just go, okay, do it again, but not shitty.
Yeah.
Like, and like that, to the point that was his catchphrase. Like if you had heard of his studio, you knew that like, oh, the do it again, but not shitty guy. Like that was him. And I went there and recorded with him, and full kit, right? Full live kit. I do the songs, I play them out and everything. And my drum set was tuned, but it also wasn't like super high-end metal drum kit, right? So what he ended up doing is taking all of the overheads and blending that with drum triggers along with my actual sounds. So it was just like, bro, watching how fast he did it, because I played the track and he goes, cool, highlight, right? All of a sudden everything's in MIDI. My velocities, everything. I was like,
yeah, dude. I was that's really cool. I was managing this band Arcanaut.
Okay.
Like I was like working with them for a little bit, trying to help them out with marketing and stuff.
I feel like I've heard of them, which hurts my brain.
Arcanaut, they're like super heavy. They're always getting fucking, I don't know. Their reputation was just about being loud, pretty much.
Maybe
loud
I'm thinking of a different band. I don't know.
But they're pretty hard to describe. They're like a fucking mix between like Lamb of God and Pantera. It's like melodic, but like heavy, fucking
interesting,
like hard ass.
Actually,
riffs.
very interesting.
Yeah, it was cool as hell. Unfortunately, I don't think they ever got any like really good recordings of how they should sound. Like they have recordings out, and like you could hear what their songs sound like, but you kind of have to like imagine it live. They never really got any recordings that sounded like they do live, which is like really unfortunate.
I feel like there's a few bands I know that are like that though.
Dude, there's so many bands like that. There's a lot of bands like that.
Shout out to one of my favorite Buffalo bands that no longer exists, Every Time I Die. I hate their albums. Absolutely hate every one of their albums. Because when I see them live, it's just so much of a better experience. And it breaks my heart that they broke up because now I will never have that experience again.
Yeah. Well, if you like metal, go to the live shows because they always sound better.
Always go to the live shows.
Yeah, that's how I got into metal. I mean, I wasn't even into it until I started going to live shows. And I was like, dude, this is fucking way cool. Like, this is way better than you know, like just listening to a CD and like, oh, I can't understand what they're saying. Like, no.
So
being there, like, you understand it. Like,
dude, I gotta tell you, my journey to metal is hilarious, right? So again, church kid. I discovered Skillet, right? Have you ever heard of Skillet?
Ooh, yeah, Skillet.
Super, like they were the heaviest band ever when I heard of them, and like
Christian band.
I had started playing drums right around that time.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to learn every Skillet song ever. I'm going to be super cool. And like, I did. I learned every one of their songs. I thought I was the shit, man. I could play Skillet songs. I'm a real drummer. And then a buddy of mine, I'll never forget this. It was 2009. He's like, hey, have you ever heard of August Burns Red? I was like, no, are they like as cool as Skillet? And he goes, so you like Skillet because of their drums, right? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, here's a video of their drummer, Matt Greiner, in studio. Just check this out. I'll never forget it to this day. It was their like album clip that they were making, like their studio sessions.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, the first minute and 30 seconds of their song 30 and 7. It's like the first song off of the Constellations album. And he blew my mind. I'd never even conceived drums that complicated, that technical, that like impressive. And in that moment right there, I was just like, what the fuck is this? And how do I do that? Bro, my like.
Did you ever learn?
I learned so many of their songs, and like to the point that's why in Buffalo I had a reputation for being a really good drummer, is because it's not that I was actually a really good drummer. Some people will argue that I just really liked August Burns Red, and I could play a lot of their songs.
Most drummers think they're shit. Most drummers look at themselves and they're like, I could do better.
It's like, I'm not. My whole thing was like, I wasn't Matt Greiner. So like I was obsessively practicing for a long time.
Like even Neil Peart was probably like, I suck.
He's probably looking at Buddy Rich like, I didn't have a heart attack and keep playing. I'm just not that good.
Yeah.
You're like, Neil, you're fucking Neil Peart. And he's probably like, yeah.
I do my best.
Such a drummer response though.
Yeah, dude.
Like even Travis Barker's like, I mean, I'm okay. I'm like,
yeah, like all my friends who are drummers are all like annoyingly humble. You're just like, dude, you're really fucking good. And they're like,
I think it's just honestly, I think it's a drummer thing. It's very rare that I meet like an actually talented drummer. Let me clarify that. An actually talented drummer.
Well, why do those two traits line up? Why do those two traits like line up, you know? I feel like I almost feel like it's like a related to the whole like warriors are like the most peaceful people. You know what I mean?
Probably.
Like if you can only truly be peaceful if you're capable of war, you know? So like the drummers who are like so violent in their craft and like see that kind of fucking intensity in the music, like when it comes down to the music, they're just like, like, and their philosophy on it. It's so like, you know, like It could be better.
Dude, the thing about metal is it teaches you almost to a like unhealthy degree how like you can just push through if you want to. I say that because one of my first shows back in the day with a band called the Scarlet Masquerade, I'd gone to I Matter Festival, right? It's this festival kind of in the middle of nowhere. It was this big free anti-suicide kind of festival. Super fun, all metal bands. I got to see August Burns Red, Texas in July, We Came as Romans, like just
all the 3-word bands.
Well, like it's just like if you were at first it was if you were a Christian band, and then it was because everyone started to notice like it's all Christian bands. They're like, here's all positive bands. So like then they just had bands that generally promoted like
here's bands that don't hate Christians.
Like, yeah, because they're like, well, they realize that, you know, having an anti-suicide festival and then playing only Christian bands is not going to get people that, you know, are genuinely struggling there. So they, you know, mixed it up. I liked it. It was a good time. I was a percussion performance major at the time in college. And I went into the mosh pit.
You went to college for music?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I went into the mosh pit. Like the genius that I am. And even to this day, I struggle to not go into mosh pits because like I'm apparently a psychopath. I don't know.
I have trouble too.
I say that as a joke in the psychopath department,
but it's
like,
an addiction.
It's so fun.
If I see a good mosh pit, like I just start like shaking, like okay.
You're like a kid, on Christmas.
Yeah, I start looking at my friends like, are you guys gonna go in?
I like it. Is this me solo or what are we doing here? What are we doing?
I have to fuck up a bunch of people I don't know.
So I jump into this mosh pit. Mind you, when I started college, and this is my freshman year of college, when I started college, I just come off of my like puberty growth spurt. I was a late bloomer. So I'm just now getting used to being 6 feet tall. And I had weighed a lot less before like the whole growth spurt. Like when I was a sophomore and even a junior in high school, I was like 5'2", 90 pounds.
Yeah.
I was tiny. And then like my senior year, I ended up blowing up to like 5'11" 3/4. I'll never forget it because my gym teacher would not give me the last quarter to just say I'm 6 feet. And I to this day,
Same.
to this day. No, the reason I'm upset
is... So
you're
saying we're the same height?
No. I'm saying that upset me because I went to the doctor that fall for my physical and my doctor goes, yeah, you're 6 foot on the dot. I'm like,
it just depends. Like if you slept enough that day or whatever.
Or if
like,
your back decompressed.
Did you stretch earlier or?
Dude, that was the whole thing is I was just like, I was so butthurt in that moment. I was like, I'm 95% positive his name was Mr. Brunner. Super great gym teacher. Also will never forgive him for that.
Yeah. Well, I like to hold on to the fact that I'm like 5'11" and a half. I like to hold on to that. Because like people will always be like, oh, what are you like 6'1", 6'2"? Like, no.
I'm shorter.
I'm wearing boots. Like it always takes him off guard. I just like that little bit of entertainment. I don't know,
bro. That is honestly that's the best way to handle that. I love that.
I'm not quite 6 feet,
but finishing my story. So going to the mosh pit, I dislocate my middle finger and my pointer finger on this hand. Like the knuckles stacks, right? So my knuckles stack on top of each other. I don't notice for like a good solid 5-10 minutes. So my hand's just like fucked up. And my buddy, like when we're walking to go get like food or something, he goes, Nate, what the fuck's wrong with your hand? And I look down, realize what's going on. I just go, ah! And like pull my fingers and snap them back into place.
That's what I would do.
And then I'm just like,
oh shit, dude.
Then I realized like, holy shit, like what did I just do? And so the following Monday, I think it was a Saturday, the following Monday I go in for like my private drum lesson and my professor just looks at me and goes, are you actually an idiot? I go, I was having I just wanted to have a fun time. He's like, you're a percussion performance major. You went into a mosh pit and dislocated 2 fingers. Do you not see the problem there? And I just started laughing. He's like, what's so funny? I was like, I actually have a show this Friday.
Like, I'm going to have to figure this out.
So I went to the show and I walk in, and this is one of those things where I love the producer, like, oh my God. I'm sorry, the promoter. His name's Nick Staley. We used to call him Sailboat. I love this dude. He's hilarious. Genuinely, like, one of a kind. Great person.
Where was this at?
Buffalo.
In Buffalo?
Yes.
Is he still there?
He is still there. I don't think he's a promoter anymore,
Well,
which is unfortunate. I loved his shows. He is the reason that I got started in bands. He was the first promoter to give one of my bands a chance. So, like, I'll always have a special place in my heart for that dude forever. But Sailboat, like, I don't even remember how I got on this. He's just like, I'm talking about how cool he was, because he helped me start in music, and I genuinely can look at the fact that, like, I've never fully processed that I wouldn't be where I am today without somebody like him. And, like,
yeah, dude, it doesn't take very much to, like, change someone's life.
I again doubt you'll see this, but if you do, Nick, thank you. Honestly,
send it to him.
Well, I'm gonna send it to him. Doesn't mean he's gonna watch it, but
send
like,
it to everybody you know.
Brother, you don't understand. I got that back in the day Facebook friend list where it's like 4,000 strong. We're going in.
Right, well, the YouTube video that has the most views is like 168 views. That's it. So if you can break that,
I need my friends to help me break that.
I need your friends to help me break that.
All right, fair enough.
You were talking about Sailboat, saying like, you walked in with your hand all fucked up for a show.
So I walk in, hands fucked, and he just looks at me. This is a prank, right? I'm like, no, my hand's fucked. So you have a replacement, right? I was like, no, I'm going to play. Fucking how? I said, watch me. Fucking watch me. So I got my fingers in like the splints and stuff, right? I have one drumstick in my hand and I tape it to my hand. Like, I'm like, I can hold it with 3 fingers, but just in case, I got taped to kind of like, I kept it right at the fulcrum. Like, I made sure that I held the stick as properly as I could and then taped it there. Bro, after the first song, I ripped the tape off and I was like, all right, 3 fingers is enough. Played a killer set, had a great time. Afterwards, my fucking hand, oh, dude, I thought that I had cut my hand off for a minute. Like, it hurt so bad.
Was it worth it?
Absolutely, 100%. I'd do it again every time.
Was it like a golf ball?
So
swollen.
The worst part was, as I was playing at certain parts, like, my fingers aren't on, so like I'm slapping my fingers off of the snare rim while I'm playing.
Ow. Were you drinking at all?
No. I was still underage, so like I'm sober as a bird. I'm also going to a Christian college at the time, so I'm like little Mr. Goody Two Shoes. At this point in my life, I think I'm going to be a youth pastor for real, right? So I'm playing metal drums in a bar with a metal band that is not Christian, and my ass wants to be a youth pastor. Clearly, I was thinking all the way through that.
Yeah, something about that just makes sense.
But after the show, my hand's fucking on fire. Like, I feel like shit. I really just don't. I'm like so mad that I did that to myself. And like, one of my friends who like came to the show was like, dude, I didn't know you played like that. It's like, oh, thanks, man. He's like, no, I had no idea. Like, that's incredible. I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, not thinking much of it. He's like, I'm going to tell some people about that. That ended up turning into a conversation that got me into a band later on. So like, it's crazy how some of that stuff works out. To clarify, that band was Kings and Kingdoms, the one that I was in for the longest amount of time in Buffalo. Yeah. And like,
are those guys still out there?
Unfortunately, no. I love those dudes.
Are they doing other bands and stuff or what?
Some of them are. Some of them are just living life. Like, our old guitar player Mike, he had like a whole actual job and career and stuff. Like, he's got a fiance now, house. Like, he's an adult, like living life. And it's just one of those things where I wish the band had worked out a little bit more, because it's one of those bands that I think that if we just had the right, not people, because we had the right people in the band, but if we had the right opportunities or just met the right people, or you know, as the cliche is, if I knew then what I know now, I really feel like I'd still be out on the road with those guys, because those are some of my, like, at that point in my life, those were my best friends.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about Arcanaut. Arcanaut, like, some of my best friends are, like, still in Arcanaut, sort of. Like,
kind of.
Arcanaut's kind of...
indefinite hiatus.
Yeah, sort of, something like
Feel
that. So
Feel that.
it's like they never really got it together, and it's like nobody's surprised, but at the same time, it's like a real shame. Everybody was like hoping Arcanaut would be like what they were supposed to be,
well, and that's why I like my buddy August Geithner. Love the dude. Yeah. He's the guitarist for a band called Until I Wake. He actually got me in that band for a little bit, and like my dedication to it just wasn't where it needed to be for that. And I didn't understand at the time until they like signed a record deal like within a couple months of me not being a part of the band. And I realized like, oh, like you were really committed to this. Like I was still on that like local scene grind. You were on like the real adult grind. And like, I love those dudes. I'm so happy for them. Like they're signed to Fearless Records. Amazing band. If you ever have the chance to see them, I missed them the last time they were in Phoenix. Little heartbroken about that, and by a little I mean really heartbroken about that. I got my dates confused, which is the worst.
Oh, that's a dumb mistake.
Well, I thought they were gonna be here. Like I was looking at an August Burns Red show in November, and like I saw their show in October and switched the dates in my head. So, like, I'm thinking I'm going to watch them in November. I'm like, it's fine. Because, like, I was going to go to the August Burns Red show. And I was like, I'm a little tight on funds. I'll just go to the Until I Wake show. Then I realized they reversed. And I was just like, well, shit. That's But going back to it, my buddy August was in Kings and Kingdoms initially. He was one of the, like, starting members with us.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to see that somebody from that group is doing it. Like, I'm so happy that he's doing it. And like, I really hope that band gets like huge, like dumb huge, because they deserve it. And because like Buffalo needs more guys that like can show that like, yeah, no, we're like a real place. Like,
at least on like a fucking like TV series soundtrack or something. Shit.
Well, and they're like right at that perfect radio rock place.
Maybe they
where
can
like,
get it. Yeah, maybe they can get some sync licensing. That's
like,
the key. Right now, the key is sync licensing. If you can get a couple sync licenses for your music and like get some TV shows or something.
Bro, they're on Sirius. They're on Octane. So like they have a chance.
I'm just telling you, making money, like literally getting funds for your music.
Nah,
like getting on.
I'm like hoping like
being on a radio.
Truthfully, I want some random anime to pick up one of their songs. That's what I want.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, are you gonna be in like a movie or a show, like, or any YouTube video, where like you have to have a license, right?
Yeah.
To use music, you're paying the artist to do
use
it.
Like, that, yeah.
You're paying them way more than Spotify would ever pay them.
Absolutely.
You know, so
those
shit,
price
like,
breakdowns kill.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and if you look at like what Spotify does, it's like
their average employee,
and you look at what people are like how many artists they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what artists are saying like would be a fair wage. If you added all that up, Spotify would be bankrupt like in a couple months.
Well, here's the crazy thing about Spotify, and I haven't looked at the figures recently, so this could be very inaccurate based on current time. But the last time I looked at it, the average Spotify employee made somewhere in the range of like 160K, right? Somewhere in that, like average. So obviously up or down or whatever, average. I saw a thing about how many plays you would need to get the average salary, and it was like in the billions. That's ridiculous.
But go the other way. Like, you know, how many artists are there? And how much would it take for all of them to get 160K? If you multiplied that, like the artist,
the math don't math.
To the artist to Spotify employee ratio,
ridiculous.
That doesn't add.
It
like
doesn't.
You can't do that equation both ways,
No.
so you can't reconcile that. That doesn't work.
My whole thing is, and I say this as somebody that has done music and looks at musicians and says, like, I get that you don't get enough for your art. I feel as though you've got these multi-million-dollar corporations like them, and I'm more so pointing at Apple because they make so much more money off of so many other products and projects that, like, just pay the fucking artists a little more. Like, instead of like 0.001 cent per stream or whatever it is, like, give them a penny. 100 plays, that's $1. Well, that's ridiculous. I'm sure that if you work out deals with record labels, because that's who you're mostly talking to, I'm sure you can figure out a fair pay scale for that. But independent artists deserve every 100 plays $1. That's fair. And if you're like, well, that's not fair. All right, cut that to half.
It's not that it's not fair. It's that it wouldn't add up. They wouldn't have enough money to hand out after that, you know?
No, you're right.
Like, there wouldn't be enough money to hand for 100 plays a penny. Like, how many plays total are there in a year? And like billions and billions, like total plays. So it's like billions of pennies adds up to a lot. I don't know.
Money. No, and like when you break it down like that, I do understand the current scale a lot more. It's frustrating because there's got to be somewhere.
And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just repeating knowledge I've heard somewhere, but it seems to me like there is a bit of both. There's a bit of like the companies trying to get rich because, you know, everybody wants to live well. Everybody
and
wants
profit
to have
is profit.
Everybody wants a second house so they can go where it doesn't snow.
Yep.
You know, everybody wants that.
The thing is, I get it. It's just,
that's where Arizona is. Arizona is the land of second houses.
Yeah, because ain't nobody trying to be here in the summer.
Everybody rich buys a house here to go here when it's snowing, where they want to live.
Correct.
Because there's some beautiful places, but they snow. Sucks. Like, that's what Arizona's for.
True. No, and that's really evident in the condos I live in right now, because like all the snowbirds are coming back, and it's very obvious.
It's all full.
Well, like there's always, for lack of a better term, older people at the pool now. A lot of them very weathered skin. They have lived life. And they're just out there all day, just tanning more. It's crazy. But like traffic's worse now. Like half the stuff that I want to do is just more difficult. It's like, oh, they're back.
Traffic is horrible. Traffic's horrible all the time here now.
It's not. I will say I've noticed a massive difference between the summer and now. I will say that.
Like, yeah, there's a difference, but the summer is still like...
It sucks. Because it's...
And it's not that like you don't move. It's that like I feel like it's dangerous. Like I feel like I'm next. You know, like I'm the next person to get fucking flipped over by a semi or something. Like, because even the fucking truck drivers are nuts.
Everybody drives like a fucking psychopath. It's crazy.
I'm just defensive all the time and I'm scared, you know?
Bro, I will tell you, coming from Buffalo to here and driving, it's so different. When I go home, I realize because I'm a defensive driver here, I drive the same here as I do there, and I'm a very aggressive driver. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, everybody's slow as fuck out there.
Wow. Well, it's, one, the speed limit's lower. Two, it's just people are more cautious because, you know, it snows out there. So people don't have as much of a reason to...
You look aggressive.
Yes, I guess that's
You're not actually aggressive.
Yeah, I look like an aggressive
You're
driver.
just kind of like...
Because I'm like, fuck. I'm like going through the... Like, I'm not trying to sit here going 55 in a 55.
Just impatient. It's like city driving.
Like, exactly. But that's the thing is cities in it, like, because Buffalo doesn't have a freeway. They have highways around them. Like, there's not a freeway.
Yeah, it's like 87.
Bro, you know how we have the 101, 202, and 303?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, that's for cities. That stuff's for cities.
Excuse me. Buffalo is a city. Based on the...
Sure it is.
I am saying this based on the fact that it is classified as a city, and I still don't understand why. But that is not... It is classified as a city.
Because there's a college there.
Is that? I want you to understand. Like, I don't know city classification, so if that's all it takes, like, wow.
They bring in money because the school.
Well, I know that also back in the steel industry days, it was like a way more poppin' town. You know, kind of like how Bethlehem Steel was like.
And they needed a new way to make money.
And then like the steel mills closed, and Buffalo was like, oh, we have football and beer and chicken wings.
What else has football and beer? College.
Are you trying to tell me right now that Buffalo is basically just a glorified college town?
I'm just saying college.
Are you saying that the city that I grew up in is basically just a glorified college town? Because the more you say it, as in the more I say it, the more I'm like,
how many cities are just surviving off the college? Like the fact that college kids travel to that city to go to school. And then
that's not Buffalo. Buffalo is surviving off the fact that like we have people that are absolutely psychopaths for a football team. I will say this as somebody that grew up and experienced it a lot. Bills Mafia, that's like a real thing. Like people, I'm not kidding. Like people, you see what like the media puts out on like different internet platforms or whatever, and it's like, oh, they're jumping through tables and they're doing this and that, and it's like, no, that's true. Like that's not a joke. We have a guy called Pinto Ron. We spray him down with ketchup and mustard every game. I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't until recently I learned the history there and why we do it. It was just something that we all did. Couldn't have told you why until this year. An example of Bills Mafia and the things that happened there is when I was a younger man, it was the Kyle Williams retirement game, if I remember correctly. Or it was the year before that. It was somewhere in that area. I was a little younger. Was not really taking care of my brain in the sense that I went to every game plastered. But I'm walking through the parking lot with my buddy, right? We're just kind of going through the bus parking lot. This big, like, 6'6", 300-pound guy. I'm going to assume he was more because he was really tall, but he was, like, round, right? Mm-hmm. And he, like, points at me, and he's got a pitcher of beer in his hand. He's like, and I don't know if we were just on the same, like, wavelength or what was going on there, but I was like, yeah. And he hands me the pitcher of beer. And it's, like, Tebowing was still relevant, if you know what that is. Mm-hmm. So I start Tebowing while chugging this pitcher, right? I'm a smaller guy, so, like, at first he's like, okay. And I like start really like getting through the pitcher, and he's like, oh, he's gonna do it, right? So I finish the pitcher, I hold it up, I stand up, I'm like, yeah. Dude picks me up and puts me on his shoulders like I'm a child. Like that's how much effort he had. He was just like, boom. And he takes the pitcher out of my hand, holds it in one hand, and points at me, right? We're in a bus parking lot. All these people just start freaking the fuck out. They're like, oh yeah, wow. And he just throws me, like, falls forward as hard as he can through a fucking folding table, right? That's a very Bills Mafia thing. Like, folding tables, if you have a folding table at a Bills Mafia tailgate, understand your table is at risk. I say that with the most genuine heart ever. We will go through the table. It's just, we'll be courteous about it. Like, hey, can we smash that? If we get drunk enough, we're probably gonna smash that. So like, if you don't want it to get smashed, make sure it's put away before the second half. And it's just usually a good, solid way to handle that one.
Put away your tables.
Usually,
hide your tables, hide your chairs. We're out here smashing those,
bro. It is a culture of like, they're the nicest people. Like, I'll tell you about the game that I went home for this year. Right? I went home. I went to a Bills game. I got to a level of inebriation that was really fun. I had a great time. Leaving the game, I was really pissed because traffic was like super horrendous. Turns out some guy went to the game on weed, alcohol, cocaine, and if I remember the psychedelic correctly, PCP. I don't think that's a psychedelic. I think he was just fucking losing his shit.
It's not a psychedelic.
I don't remember all the drugs he was on. All I know is, no, it was LSD. I'm sorry, not PCP, LSD. Dude.
Okay, the first three sounded reasonable until you got to the last one.
And right? It gets worse. This dude gets a porta potty dumped on him somehow, or he jumped into it. That's a little hairy. I've heard different versions of that. All I know is there's a guy covered in shit.
Jeez.
That jumps in, because the way that Buffalo's working right now, we have the stadium we're currently playing in. We're building the new stadium right next to it. So he jumps the fence into the new construction area, right? Starts running. And he falls off the first slope. The first slope is like a 10-foot fall. But he like rolls and like he's fucked up enough that he doesn't really get hurt, right? And so people are like, hey, stop. Stop. Like
you shouldn't be there.
Like, stop. Of course, he's tripping dick. So he's like, ah! Runs further, falls down the next one. That is a 30-foot drop. When the Mercy Flight comes to get him, he is literally throwing up the peace sign and a middle finger. And that is the most Buffalo thing ever, because I'm pretty sure that anybody in that exact situation would do the exact same fucking thing. It's like, not everyone. There's a pretty good chance that like most of the people from Buffalo, if they're in that situation, are going to be like, it's just the way that we are. And maybe I'm speaking too generally. Like there's a lot of really like higher quality people than me for sure. But Bills games and like Bills Mafia and like tailgating culture in Buffalo, absolutely, dude.
Like Phoenix culture would just be watching that guy run out there and like not saying a goddamn thing. That would be Phoenix culture.
You're like, oh, that's weird.
Just watching, like, what's going to happen?
Dude, we have, like, my buddies played more than one show during tailgates, like, to full crowds. It just happens. People, like, it's like a party until the game happens. I'm actually really worried for a lot of my friends today because there's a Bills game, and it's the Sunday night game. The problem is most people in Buffalo started drinking at 7 or 8.
Yeah.
The game starts at like 8:20, 8:30.
They'll be all right. They've done this before.
They'll be fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, they've done it before. You know, it's as long as you like have some idea of where you're gonna end up, you're okay.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going here. Like this is gonna be my final place.
Yeah.
And here's how I'm gonna get there. Like as long as you got that in mind, you're probably fine. I've seen people drink a hell of a lot, you know.
Dude, I'll wrap with this because like I'm spending infinitely too much time talking about Buffalo football, but
sounds like some good stories, dude.
Bro, if only I had the time. There's so many. I've been kicked out of games because I'm just like too much. The thing is, you're thinking like, oh, so you're probably on a list. No, they're just like, hey, come back next week, like less drunk, please.
There's no list. Yeah, it's like a bar. They're just like, you need to leave.
No, some people get 86. Like, there's definitely people that can't come back, but like,
well, yeah, sure. If you're like, I mean, if you don't use the peace sign and middle finger, if it's just 2 middle fingers,
if you're just like double bird,
86, dude. Yeah,
then get out.
That's offensive. You've crossed the line, bud.
The worst part is you're probably not wrong. Like this is very believable.
You fucked up.
It's like, sir, you got to have some kind of peace in your heart. That's a little too extreme.
So disrespectful.
Speaking of disrespectful, let's go back to our earlier church conversation. You were saying how when we were on break about how you don't like to conform because of your Catholic upbringing.
At some point we were talking about like some like human constructs and things like that, and like how everything is pretty much man-made. And I feel like the reason I can kind of like pick those things out and like notice them, like, I mean, technically they're anywhere. I mean, everything is a human construct because we're perceiving the world. But in order to like simplify it to where people can understand it, you know, you got to say things like streetlights. You know, streetlights are human constructs. Like, are we here to obey the streetlights, or are they here for us? You know, shit like that. Like the English language, it's a human construct. You know, it could mean whatever you want it to mean.
Technically, yeah.
People say like, oh, progressive is this. Well, it doesn't sound like it. You know, according to the definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some shit there for sure. But what I was saying is like I grew up Catholic, and as most people know, the traditions are pretty they can be pretty hardcore. At their most extreme, they're pretty hardcore, but I didn't grow up in one of those like extreme kind of branches of it.
I feel like that's a lot of like those religions. There's always an extreme subsect.
It was a very, very mild version of Catholicism. Like we went to church every Sunday, and yes, it was like standing and kneeling and standing and kneeling, and like I didn't get it as a kid. That's just how it was. And I thought all church was that way. I was like, oh, what? You don't kneel in church? Like, really?
Yep. Yeah.
Strange.
No, I get you.
Like that. I thought that was part of it. The priest doesn't hold up the bread and say, "This is the body of Christ." He doesn't do that.
What?
Like
that's not normal. What?
Like it's not like a whole theatrical like ceremony.
Wait, this
like,
isn't a performance? You guys just go and like listen to songs?
Yeah, Catholicism is a performance from start to finish. It's a whole theater. Like, and that's the discipline though. Like the discipline is dressing up and doing the theater and doing the symbols. Like all of that is actually important. Like to anyone who doesn't know Catholicism, it looks like theater.
Well, and they did they did the services in Latin until like what, the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like
even then it was like pure theater then.
Yeah, like you're going to a place to hear Latin, and yeah, some people might have understood what was being said, but let's be real here.
Or you're trying to learn it while you're going to church. That was probably a lot of people.
You're learning Latin so that you can understand the message that's being given to you. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so I grew up in like Catholicism. So I was looking at all these things, and I was like, kind of like, this is kind of, this kind of like some of these stories seem a little out there. I'm watching the History Channel about like the animal kingdom, and
this doesn't make sense.
The universe on the space, like all the space channel shit and stuff. And my dad was a Mormon. He was raised Mormon.
Bro, you got an interesting backstory going on there.
He didn't really stick to the religion, and he in high school he kind of went off on his own.
As one does.
Yeah. When you're Mormon, you either go one way or the other, right? You're either like,
you're about it or you're not.
This ain't it. Or like,
this is it. This is
this is definitely
like, bro, and I'm not saying this to like point a finger or anything. Like, to each their own, whatever you believe. If you can't have jokes made about your religion, it's probably a problem. Like, you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Every time I've met like a real serious Mormon, it's been the same thing, okay? They're very passionate about their faith. They're very passionate. And then you ask them questions about their own faith that they're not fully aware of. And it's very interesting to watch the process after that. Because I don't know if this is still part of their teachings, but at one point, the darker your skin, the more sins you committed in your past life, right? That's why black people are bad.
It's like in the scripture, right?
I'm pretty sure that's in there.
I'm sure most Mormons would deny that.
They do. No, I asked that of a black
writings.
Mormon.
It's in the writings, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I asked that of a black Mormon. I was like, that you're like, this is part of your teachings back in the past, right? Well, we don't really believe that anymore.
Yeah, so it's whatever you want to believe.
Okay. Fairy princesses are cool, and I like rainbow unicorns and all that. Like, at that point, like, let's just go play My Little Pony as a real religion. Why not? There's already bronies or whatever they're called. Like,
well, I mean, they have some good messages in My Little Pony. I've watched that show, dude. It's not a bad show. They've got some good lessons. You can learn things from everything.
I know you're right. It's just that is not where I thought you were going with that one.
Hey, man, like, what do you like? If you're calling it the same, we can go there.
But like, no, like, if you're not going to adhere to what you're reading, or you don't have like any kind of real thought, like you don't have an explanation for that, it's kind of hard to. And that's the whole reason that I have a lot of like. Very conflicted about the church as a whole. I don't like to look at it as a whole because I feel like there's a lot of churches out there doing a lot of good, like trying to do it right. I feel like there are really small churches you don't hear about that are doing it right.
Oh yeah.
I definitely believe that.
The smaller the better.
And like there's that I can't say that like in good conscience. I work with a mega church, and I will be completely candid in the fact that a lot of what like I line up with them. There's a lot of things that, in terms of what they teach versus what I believed walking in the door, line up.
Do you know what like the exact like branch of Christianity they teaches?
From my understanding, it's non-denominational, which is a crazy thing to say because now non-denominational is a denomination, which
doesn't make sense.
It's because if you look,
make up another word.
Well, that's the thing. Is initially it was if you fall under the branch of Christianity. When non-denominational was founded, it was you can be a Baptist, a Methodist, a Lutheran, whatever. Come to our doors. We're all going to get along. And then, you know, as people do, there's reasons to find division. There's reasons to be like, well, I don't agree with you. And so then non-denominational churches just became another, you know, just another denomination. It's just another split.
Everyone's welcome to worship here, but you might be wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know how to phrase that better because, like, when you really look at a lot of the...
I was just making a joke.
No, but it's true because when you look at it, like, there's a lot of difference between Episcopalian, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran. And if you don't understand all of that, you're like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, you just sound like an idiot. And that's why, like, without knowing the history, the statement non-denominational just seems like, oh, everybody. Cool. That works. But then you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, wow, people really just be dividing this as much as possible. And like, churches split apart for stupid reasons sometimes. I'll fully admit that. I've been in churches where, you know,
look at the Mormons. I'm just joking.
No, I mean, dude,
I'm just joking.
I'm not trying to get murdered in my sleep, bro. I feel like they're gonna be watching me after this one.
They're too nice. They're too nice, dude.
I'm gonna stay off that one for a minute.
All the Mormons I've ever met, they'd never have the capability.
I wouldn't say never. It's just like everyone
that I've met.
Nah, bro, I've met a lot of Mormons, and I say this in the most respectful way. A lot of them are really nice people. Yeah. Some of them concern me. Some of them very much. Like, just their, like, willingness. I don't know, man. That feels like almost a cult level willingness. Like, you could definitely take advantage of that.
I mean, how good is that Kool-Aid? It must be delicious.
Bro, now I'm just thinking about some Netflix documentaries I saw on the Mormon Church recently, and I really don't want to get into that because that's...
Yeah, we don't have to get into that.
Bro, I'll tell you, go look up, you know, I forget what I think it's Eat, Pray, Love, Obey or something like that. Look that up on Netflix. I didn't realize so many, like, aspects of that. When I watched it, I remembered, like, a lot of the things that happened in it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it was national news that, like, I didn't, as a kid, kind of process. I was just like, oh, these are things that I see on nightly news.
Like the fucking polygamous colonies.
Yeah,
and shit like that.
And like you hear some of that, but like it's nightly news fearmonger type stuff.
Yeah.
And then like if you watch the documentary, there's just a lot that you learn, a lot of things that a specific part of that religion, a subsect, if you will. I would consider them radical. What they believe, what they kind of, what they're about, their message, how they operate. It's very disturbing, but also very fascinating.
It's probably closer to Orthodox Mormonism from the 1800s.
I would be like it. To me, it feels like it.
Because like the 1800s were a wild fucking time, dude.
Well, and just you look at some of the things that happen and were done, and in the documentary, there's like some really. Like, I will say, like, do not watch this if you have a weak stomach. Like, there's some very depraved and genuinely fucked up things that you learn in that documentary about just the upper level of that church and what's going on. But I will say that you look at how the main character, if you will, of this documentary, how his life plays out and how things land, and you look at the founder, Joseph Smith, and some of his beliefs. And your statement holds up a lot more than it should. And I think that's a concerning point now that you say that.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, like, orthodox is another word invented by humans, you know? But it's like, at what point do you say like, oh, that's not orthodox? Like by the definition, like you just have to decide when it is or isn't.
Yep.
But like I thought that the Mormon leadership like kind of like denounced that sort of
the
part of
more
their
public eye, the current iteration, the more modern one that you see, I don't think really prescribes to a lot of what that documentary covers.
It's not a good look.
Well, it reflects bad on you, absolutely. But like, it's almost like they justified letting that go out there because it's not specifically them. Like, it's like, oh, this is an extremist version of us. And it's like, well, but somewhere in there, your beliefs are tied to them. Like somewhere in there, like you watch this and you see all the things that play out and how it kind of lays. And you're like, at a certain point, like, you agree with them. Like, you don't agree with everything, but on a certain, they're over here, somewhere in that spectrum, you agree with them. You don't disagree with everything. So.
Yeah, but it's like, what are they going to do, though? What more do you do other than saying, like, they aren't us?
No, that's really all you can do.
You're gonna like take your militia, storm in there, and start taking people out.
Now could they do that? That is the question. Do they have the funding and manpower to do it? I don't know. I could see it.
Start a war with the polygamists.
It's like, how dare you have 3 wives? We said don't do that publicly anymore.
Yeah, we told you that was a sin.
We told you could leave it in Utah and be quiet about it. Why are you making it public?
Disgusting monsters.
But I really believe in like trying to tie in a lot of what we talked about in the first half about like God, DMT, that kind of stuff. I really believe that there is a lot of truth and a lot of what Jesus said and a lot of the scriptures that kind of support him. I think that there's also the aspect that it's a book written by people influenced by God. That is the whole, it was inspired by God. So you have to kind of, how do you navigate that? That's for everyone to decide. But I do think at the end of the day that Jesus was either an entirely delusional and deranged person or he was onto something. Because if you listen to him, the majority of his message is not, I am God, I am this all-powerful being. It is, be a good person, treat each other with love and kindness, respect one another. It's a lot of the like golden rule type principles.
Could Jesus have existed and no miracles have been performed?
That's a tough question to answer. And I say that not because of specifically the book of the Bible. I say that because a lot of the historical texts outside of it, there's just a lot of people that don't back up per se, but like note his miracles. Like, I was not present, but allegedly type of stuff. So it's like, even in that time, like, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. It's like, okay. Like, I forget I think he was Roman. He might've been Greek. I genuinely wish I had more concrete, information on this one right now. But when Jesus died in the book, it said, like, the book being the Bible, that like the sky was blackened and the earth shook, right? Historians from that time record that around the time of Jesus' death, the sky was covered in darkness, as in like there was just a really big storm, kind of cloud coverage, and that there was an earthquake. Now, was that because the Son of God was smited? Or was that just really good, like, coincidence? Because it could happen. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that couldn't happen, especially if Jesus was smart enough to be able to calculate like certain things, like if he had any level of understanding of weather patterns, or, like there's little things that, like, if he was just really aware of the world he lived in, or he had some kind of like, if he had any level of inside information that was not given divinely, it's like a lot of that stuff could happen. But I look at it as, if I strip back everything and I look at him as a person, with or without the miracles, like he's still saying, don't be an asshole. Don't be like, be a good person. Do your best to have some level of moral fiber and character. And truthfully, for me, I look at that influence, what he sought out to do, and the fact that he's not the most influential person in all of history. And the reason he's not the most influential person in history is not because he didn't have the greatest impact. It has nothing to do with his actual impact, because almost everybody in the world knows who Jesus is, right? Yeah. It's a very fair argument to make. He's not the most influential because of his reach. It's because of his believers. I forget who the quote comes from, but there was a guy that did like the whole research of like who's the most influential person in all of history. He said Jesus would easily be far and above number one if all of his followers actually adhered to what he said.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of people that you could say that for.
That's true. But I look at that and I look at what he said versus like your experience in the Catholic Church, my experience as a young man in a Christian church. There's a lot of things that I was either exposed to or saw or didn't fully understand. Like there's a lot of human failing there, right? There's a lot of just people not rising to the occasion, and people are going to fail you. That's why it's hard for me to look in the face of a lot of what, Jesus stood for and what he did, not just from the fact of him being a God, like as a person. He was just he strove to be a good person.
I like to think of Jesus as like the first Superman, right? So
okay.
He's like,
I'm very curious to hear this one.
All the stories and everything surrounding him that like give the best examples of what humanity should be, like how you should act, like how you should like hold yourself, to what standard you should hold yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like he's like the first fucking hero that was like showing people this is how you should live, instead of these other ways that just aren't so great.
I'm very upset at how well that tracks.
He's like
the first superhero.
Yeah, dude. He does some crazy shit you can't explain. He's got magic powers, like, and you can explain them by saying like, yeah, he's the son of God, but like, you can't prove that that's why he had those powers. You can say,
and that's a whole other aspect that like
you can find all this evidence that he did all these things, and like you can find stories that line up and match, but like, like how many of these things were just like his teachings, like he was a real person teaching these things. But then what if somebody came and used his teachings and like, used his story as a hyperbole and like kind of magnified it to a point where it made a bigger emphasis on like what happened?
And that's the tough one. Is I look at that very much in the sense that this is where a lot of people say this is where faith comes in, right? I have faith that there is enough of the original thread still intact to have faith that even if you reduce a lot of what happened, right? Even if you tone it down.
Yeah.
Instead of 5,000 people, it's 1,000. Or even instead of 5,000 people, it's 100. Like, that's still impressive. It's still not normal. It's still not possible by our standards. So even if you want to make a hyperbole out of his stories, whether or not they are is not the fascinating part to me. It's the fact that a bunch of people corroborate on the fact that like something crazy happened. People that are writing for it and people that are outside of it. They're like, yeah, I don't understand. I've heard about this Jesus guy and like he's crazy, but like he's doing things I didn't think people would do. I don't know, man.
I'm just saying there's not enough details to even claim that they were impossible acts.
And that's
like,
why
it might have been a very difficult thing that he pulled off, like some fucking crazy feat that a great leader would have to
be able to do
and be able to do. Like he had to take charge and fucking make some shit happen. And it seemed like all was lost. Like there was no hope.
And then he found a way.
And he found a way to do it. It could be written in a way that's like easy to remember or easy to like retain in memory. Like, oh, he did this, like this kind of crazy thing. He was capable of doing that. Like, and maybe it wasn't exactly that what he did, but he was capable of that.
And I think that brings up another point in the sense that it's like, you said, like, great leader. Like, how much do we, going back to even earlier what we were talking about, like, I wish I could see it. That's part of that. Like, I wish I had that window. That's the kind of stuff that I wish, because, like, how much of that is hyperbole?
Yeah, what happened?
And now here's the other side of that coin. What if it got toned down? Now, I know that sounds crazy, but what if it got toned down?
Yeah, I don't know. What if he was literally like a living superhero and, like, could just manipulate the fabric of reality?
And those are the things that, like, it sounds crazy, but that's why I wish I could see it, you know?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of, like, I'm one of those people that, like, I'm very science-based, I've realized. I like to see evidence. I really like to see evidence.
If I could go back, I'd go way further back.
Well, I would love to. The reason I want to talk to specifically Jesus is because if he really is the Son of God, one, he'll know exactly who the fuck I am immediately. Oh, hey, Nate, in English, in his day and age. That right there, if he can acknowledge who I am right then and there, game over.
Yeah, if that happened, then yeah, sure.
But that's what I'm saying is, like,
if he's capable of that.
That's why, like, he's the most interesting man in all of history, because based on the stories alone.
Are there stories of him doing that?
Well, no, but think about it. Jesus is the only person in theory that is omniscient of time. Like, his mind lives outside of time. So if we did invent time travel, we do go back, we figure it out, he's going to know exactly who we are. If he is who he says he is, he's going to know exactly who we are.
So I guess, is there, like, a point where he became, like, aware of this knowledge, or is it alleged that he knew all along?
That, from my understanding, he had some level of awareness the whole time, and didn't really start teaching the message until he was, like, 30. Jesus was 33 when he died, you know. In 3.5 years, I'll be as old as him when he died. So I really, as I get older and closer to that metric, I really start to realize, like, you died very young.
Yeah.
Like, he did not live a very long life.
He lived about halfway, because back then 60 was
like you're an elder, yeah. But I look at the fact that, like, you died as a middle-aged man. Okay, we'll go with middle-aged. You didn't start your radical message until you were 30. In the span of 3 years, you changed history forever. Like, that's why Jesus is such a fascinating person to me, character to me, like, being.
Yeah.
Regardless of anything else you want to say, like, his birth, existence, split time as we currently understand it. And the only reason we go with, I know that people are trying to change it to before Common Era and Common Era. The reason that I will always go BC and AD is because of the history behind that. The Christian church is the one that came up with the calendar and the counting the years that we currently, like, live off of and, like, operate in. Like, in 2023, we function off that calendar that they calculated. And I can't help but look at the fact that, like, based on the evidence we have, that was the most accurate calendar and the most in-depth understanding of time as it was recorded at that point. So I have to think that, like, you were important enough to split time and have people that believed in you keep a good enough track of that to create the modern understanding of years and, like, the modern, like, development of society. And even if you were just a regular dude, just that you existing was that impactful. Like, it's impossible for me to wrap my head around the fact that he wasn't something, you know? Like, no regular ass dude creates this much hype for thousands of years.
It's hard to say. It's hard. I mean, that's where it comes into, like, how do you know? Like,
and again, That's why I want the fucking window. I want it bad, man. I want to know.
You want to know. You want to go back. And I'm just, if I had the opportunity, like the top of my list would just be like, how did they build the pyramid?
Well, I see. Here's another thing.
I want to know how
based on like based on the Christian traditions, like you should still be able to like interact at that point with some level of God. So then my question becomes: is however they're doing all of those things an act of God? The Anunnaki, like what are the Anunnaki? Like that's why I want the window. I want answers to some of our biggest questions. And
yeah, man. Like I just watched a video the other day on how like the Anunnaki are it might be the same as the Nephilim from like the Bible. So the Nephilim are supposed to be like giants who are like offspring of humans and angels.
No, I mean, I'm very upset because you said that, and I was like, that actually could track.
So, like, the Nephilim are described to be like greater than human, which has kind of it's been split in some circles as like either they're giants, literal giants, or they are, just greater in power. They have more power, or both. And like there's no way to tell, like with the Hebrew translate or the translation from ancient Hebrew to modern day. But it's like the similarities that line up in some of the stories are pretty crazy. And the fact that like the Anunnaki are always drawn bigger than humans.
The thing with that is the reason I believe they were, the reason I believe that they were bigger, like actual giants is mostly the agricultural terracing, right? We always have those tier step agricultural design. I see how we justified it. I do get the reasoning for that, but I have to ask the question of why, like, are they just steps? Because some of them aren't in areas where you could really farm. Like, they just did the terracing to do it. Why would, like, based on our understanding, right? Carving into rock like that's got to be kind of difficult, if not just like time consuming. So if you're doing it to garden and like produce, food, okay, it's a worthwhile endeavor. But if you really can't grow food there, why would you do it? Like you're not doing that for aesthetics back in that day. You're not.
I don't know. I heard a theory that these teachers or the Anunnaki or whatever, they went to different lands to teach people civilization again. And the theory is that they gave them these monumentous projects to draw them into a purpose, to like give them a purpose and come together to teach them like these are the things you can accomplish when you're working together. And like kind of restarting civilization from a bunch of barbarians that got wiped out.
Yeah.
So it's like, if that theory was true, then these things could have no more purpose than just look what we can accomplish. Here's a physical monument of civilization. Like it could be that simple. How the fuck are we supposed to know?
Well, and that, I don't know why, but that triggered something in my brain where I saw, I forget the creator's name, but there's a creator who often makes, I wouldn't call them jokes, but references the fact that like maybe all of Christianity is just Loki rewriting Norse mythology so that he's the one true God. And like, I'm like, that's so fucking stupid. And then I watch him talk and I'm like, I'm really upset that makes enough sense for me to at least question it. Like that shouldn't be close enough. And
most religions have some similarities to him at some point.
The thing is, though, like, and I wish I could remember his name, but the way that he broke it down the first time I saw him, I was like, maybe I'm just really outside of my head, and like I've been having too much of my fun time. Like maybe I smoked a little too much, drank a little too much, but the theory he presented made enough sense for me to go, I can't just poke a hole in that right off the bat. Like I have to do research to make you not right. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff that's like that, like comparing certain religions in like ancient texts.
Bro,
It's like there's a lot of weird stuff that seems like it's purposely being separated. Like somebody's trying to keep the religions separated. Like
Yep.
they won't let them connect on the back, like on the back end,
Bro,
you know, where all the ancient texts combine.
That's what I'm
It's
saying.
kind of strange, dude. It's really weird.
But that's my whole point is like, I feel as though there's just as a whole, there's a lot of information, like you're saying, on the back end that we don't get to see. It's
The
like,
Vatican.
I want, dude, I want to get into that library so bad. And I know I never will.
You got to learn Latin first.
No, I'd have to be a cardinal first. And then I'd have to essentially be sworn to secrecy. And the only person that's allowed in certain sections of the library is the Pope.
And then you got to learn Latin.
So if I really wanted to like get that info, I got to become the Pope.
Well, could you like take a picture with your phone and like translate it to Latin?
Well, yeah, I'm sure. But
Probably don't let you have a phone in there, huh?
Probably not.
They probably like tell you to leave your phone out.
That'd be a little problematic, you know. Yeah. I'm waiting for the day that, because I believe this, especially with the advent of somebody like Pope Francis the First, who's like a little bit different, a little bit more like not progressive, but like I'm not going to be a dick. Whether or not that's the right course of action, I don't know. Not the Pope. Don't make those decisions. But I'm waiting for the day where we get like a Pope. I don't know, like Pope Joe the First or something, like somebody that's like really just like interestingly chill. Like I just want to know what's gonna happen, because like this Pope is very controversial, or at least he was when he was first chosen. So it's only a matter of time before one of the popes that gets picked is like, I'm just gonna put this all out there.
I think it's very careful who they choose. So I don't think they're ever going to choose somebody who's going to do that.
Unless somebody has a drive to like fake their whole life.
Yeah, that has to be a crazy discipline to get through to be selected as the Pope.
Bro, that sounds like honestly, that sounds like the start to an anime. Like, think about it. The Catholic Church comes in, ruins this kid's life when he's like 5 or 6 or some stuff, and he just never forgets.
And the title would be like, that one time I pretended to be religious so I could be the Pope. That's the whole title.
When I became the Pope to ruin the church type of thing. Like,
that time I became the Pope so I could release the UFO documents in the Vatican. That's like the whole title.
The worst part is in Japanese, it'd be like 4 characters. Be like, Huantandai. Oh my God, that was so racist. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. You're probably right. It'd be like text on your shirt. It'd be like that.
For clarification, I'm not trying to be offensive, but Japanese names, I think of something like, I was into this anime for a little bit. Danmachi, right? That's the whole name. The American name is it wrong to pick up chicks in a dungeon?
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. I've seen it.
The first time, I watched the whole first season.
I've seen the title. I haven't seen like the...
I watched the whole first season without knowing the English like title. So I was like, wow, this is a really intriguing story that's like really adorable about a weak guy that's like trying to date the strongest character in the universe. So he's just like trying to become the best. All right, very typical anime. And then I saw the English title and I was like, I feel like a perv for watching this now.
It's not the same translation.
Well,
because like it's not the same translation because they're marketing it for Americans. That's why.
Bro, I don't know if you've heard of Jujutsu Kaisen. It's like a really...
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Have you heard of the English title for it?
No.
So everyone's like JJK. The reason that nobody, and I mean nobody, will refer to it as its English name is because when it was released, it was supposed to be called Sorcerer Fight.
I would watch it. I would still watch Sorcerer Fight. Sounds cool. I think I've heard that before, actually.
I can't. It's funny to me because like it's very like it lines up with the show. Like that is exactly what it is. It's a Sorcerer Fight. Like people were so mad that they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna call it by the Japanese name forever.
Yeah, okay. People who watched Dragon Ball for fucking years, okay?
Bro.
Sorcerer Fight can't be much like that much worse than Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and then Dragon Ball Z, and then Dragon Ball GT, and then Dragon Ball Super.
Oh my, Super's the one that like once you put Super,
it became even more Japanese.
Well, because they say super, right? It just sounds so much more like a cartoon that it's like you really can't make fun of Sorcerer, right? When you're Dragon Ball Super, like come on, dude.
Like the first anime I got into is called Bleach, like because his hair. It's so stupid. It has nothing to do with his hair. The whole show.
No, the thing, but I love anime because there's so many anime that just have dumb names that are surprisingly good, and it's like the Japanese name is usually like pretty on par. It's like okay, but then you hear the English translation, you're like, why?
Yeah, like somebody wrote this on purpose.
Like somebody wanted this to be funny and didn't understand that it was going to last as long.
They want people to stop scrolling on Netflix to look at the long ass title and like click on it, you know. Whatever. What are you going to do?
I mean, I get the mindset. I don't. It is what it is.
Americans just like long goofy names, I guess.
Well, I mean, bro, if you want to go back to it, throw it to like what was it? Or late 2000s metalcore. Why Walk on Water When We Got Boats, Goats on Boats, Reptar King of the Ozone. Like these are all names for songs.
I got killed by a bear once.
I wrestled a bear once.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
I wrestled a bear once. Like, but there's so many just like goofy destroy, rebuild until God shows. That one's not really goofy, but like, well, why is your name so long?
It's goofy in the way that it's like so long. Shouldn't be.
I think of there's just so many times that I look at song titles from that era and they're just unnecessarily long and it's funny. Again, like I love old school The Devil Wears Prada, not because the production was high quality or because like the music was just so good. It was, but like almost the level of like not taking themselves seriously. Like you're a band called The Devil Wears Prada, which is a movie about a brand of clothing and purse. Already funny. Your song names are things like Reptar King of the Ozone and HTML Rules Dude spelled with 2 zeros. Like what, like that's an era of time that like we talk about and it's like that's funny and kids are gonna look at that and be like, were they okay? Like
what a weird band.
Like
I thought they were weird when they were popular anyways.
Oh yeah, like
I was still listening to Metallica. I was a fucking depraved child.
It's all good.
My dad was listening to like Pantera and Metallica and Iron Maiden. I loved that music.
It's good music.
I was like not getting into metal for the longest time because I couldn't understand the lyrics. Like
the screaming.
What a naive perspective. What a little fool I was.
Bro, I will never forget the moment I actually started to understand screaming. It wasn't like I was reading the lyrics one day and I was like, oh, that makes sense. It was August Burns Red. I was listening to them and I literally had just broken up with a girl. Like the night before we had broken up, I got trapped at her house in a snowstorm. So like the worst level of anxiety and panic you can possibly experience. I shoveled my car out at 4 a.m. My car was covered to the top. I drove a 1999 Oldsmobile Silhouette, big minivan. Whole thing's buried. I heard the plow go by at 3:30, ran outside, dug my car out and left. Right? Like I do not want to be in that situation. It was already weird enough that I got stranded at your house after we broke up. Fucking sucks. Don't want to be here. And I'm driving home and I'm listening to one of their songs and it was Escape Artist. It's like the 6th track off of Constellations. And just hit me, man. Like I started crying because the lyrics were really connecting with me. And like I'd listened to that song before, never understood the lyrics. Ever. And then I'm driving home weeping like a nerd. And it all of a sudden like I could hear it. I was just like, this is why people listen to this music. Like that was the moment where it really like you're not screaming just to be obnoxious. That like that's the pain you feel. That's the emotion you want to express. I was like, damn, it sounded so dumb until you finally understand it. You're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like I didn't really understand metal until I started going to shows live. And I started like hearing like or like seeing how they're screaming, you know, like actually seeing them do it helped me start to understand like the
words and
the recordings, you know what I mean? I don't know. I've got a weird like auditory processing like thing though, so it's like if there's too many sounds in the room, I can't fucking concentrate on what somebody's saying, you know? I feel like that has a lot to do with why I didn't like metal first.
It's like a wall of sound coming at you, and it's hard to kind of separate it.
And then like after seeing it visually, I know what it's supposed to look like, so it kind of helps out a little bit, you know?
Dude, immensely in my opinion.
Yeah. And then I just get into really like melodic stuff. If it's not melodic enough, I don't like it. It's just like the wall of sound thing, like you said. It's just like, you know, the chuggy like.
I'm one of those people that if you do what you're going for well, I'm all in. That like
not me.
Well, that's my whole
like
thing.
More power to you, but I'm not gonna like everything.
and I say that like there's definitely something that people are intentionally doing that if you showed me, I'd be like, that's trash. It's like, that's intentional. I'm like, yeah, maybe my statement's a little too general, right? But I have a huge respect for anybody that's like, if you're doing your thing and you're doing it to the best of your ability in the sense that like, I will listen to, I'm a huge Johnny Cash guy. I always say that I don't like country, but I'm a huge Johnny Cash guy. There's other country artists that I'll listen to. It's not really my forte, but they did a good job, you know. Like there's some songs out there that I'm just like, dang, that's a good song. You really
the older ones.
Well, I wasn't gonna get into that, but yeah,
the newer country's like soulless.
That was not my whole point.
I'll say it. I don't care.
But like, I very much enjoy when you can kind of feel the passion, you know, when like the heart behind it is there. That's a huge part of my respect for music. And the keynote example for me is a guy named Vocals, also from Buffalo. He was on America's Got Talent. Like he was one of those guys that came out.
Sounds familiar.
He went on not America's Got Talent, American Idol, and he was doing like screamo rap. And they kept him almost like a caricature for the rest of the season. He showed up a couple more times, but like his music, I know plenty of people that don't like it, and that's fine. You know, if it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. But like what he's doing, like,
well, like Metal Hobo Johnson.
I don't want to say that. Like, it's hard to encapsulate what he does. I think he called it Mystic Death Trap or something like that. Like,
interesting.
Or Deathcore Trap. Like, I forget the name. When you hear it, it makes sense when you hear the genre name for it.
Death Trap Core.
Something like that.
Sounds cool.
But his music is like, anybody else that's doing what he's doing, you're copying him. Like,
yeah.
I scoured the internet after I heard him. And like, there's nobody doing what he's doing, you know? There are people like that who like, there's a lot of people that aren't going to like his sound, that aren't going to like what he's trying to do, and that's fine. I think it's incredible that he said, I have two things that I really like, and I'm going to find a way to fuse them. And bro, the music videos, the energy, just like him as a person, like he's one of those people that if you ever get the chance to see Vocals live, do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what you're going to see. I have no idea. But you will be entertained.
That's good. Nice. Vocals.
Vocals. Vokillz.
You know where he's from?
Buffalo.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit, I got to go to Buffalo then.
Dude,
get him on the podcast.
I'm going to be honest with you. The amount of people in Buffalo that I know that like, I didn't realize that strong music scenes weren't like a real thing until I left Buffalo, and I realized like, oh, like not everybody knows everybody at shows. Like, it's not a community.
No, not
here.
in Phoenix.
And like
I said, the Phoenix culture earlier, just watch that shit happen and walk away.
Dude,
like,
it's so weird to me because again, I'm used to a thing where like I'm seeing like the same 40 to 50 people. I mean, obviously there's more people, but like I'm seeing the same 40 to 50 people at a lot of the shows.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people that I'll never forget. A buddy of mine, Nick Cordula, we became friends because he kicked me in the head. Like, he kicked me in the head in a mosh pit, and I was like, who the fuck is this super tall, lanky dude? Like, and it's funny because we're both mixed kids, and we're very similar complexions, and I laugh because, like, we ended up becoming really good friends. Whenever we'd, like, go to parties and stuff, we'd start just running Pong tables to the point that, like, we would make jokes that we're the Goku and Vegeta of Pong. Like,
nice.
And, just like that friendship started because somebody like just drilled me in a mosh pit, and like I ended up like cracking him probably like a song or two later, and then after the show we were just friends. You know, that's the kind of thing that happens in Buffalo. Most of the time, not always, I'm not gonna say always, but most of the time, if somebody cracks you, they're gonna try and find you and be like, hey man, like I'm so sorry, like make sure you're okay and shit. It's just, again, one of those cultures where it's like, y'all are insane, but you do care about each other.
Yeah. In Phoenix, it's like, you're all insane, but nobody gives a fuck about anyone else.
That's scary.
That's how it is here, man. It's weird.
I can't see that.
Nobody knows their neighbors. Like,
I've noticed that because, like,
strange.
I've met a couple of my neighbors, but some of them just like avoid me like the plague. It's weird.
I grew up in that kind of like environment. And that kind of like attitude, you know, like mind your own fucking business.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, as an adult, like I'm trying so hard to like get out of that. And it's like,
it's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. When I live in it too, it's like, I'm trying to be the one who's not that way. Like, you know, out of all the strangers I see, like I try to not be like the rest of them, but it's hard, man.
I'll tell you, man.
Phoenix is weird, dude.
I will say that when I first moved here, it was very difficult for me. Very difficult because just the way that people are here is very, I don't want to say unwelcoming, but like I kind of felt like I felt like a pariah when I would do things. Like when I first moved here, I would like go to the store and like, obviously you move here from Buffalo in the winter, you're going to go from -degree weather to 70s. So I'm wearing shorts and a tank top every day when I first moved here. It's winter. So people are looking at me like I'm a psychopath because it's like 70 degrees out or 60 degrees out. And I got shorts and a t-shirt on. I'm like, oh, this is wonderful weather. And they're like, are you good? Like, are you okay? He's on drugs, right? And bro, like it's very obvious. People are very like, people in Phoenix will like, when something stands out, they're very observant of it in the sense that like, they're just going to stare at you.
Yeah.
And like,
of course,
dude,
what else do you do?
It was so weird for the first few months because I didn't understand that like I look different because I look like a tourist that lives here. And then, like, now that I've lived here a little bit and, like, I'm wearing sweaters when everyone else is, I'm like, oh. It really was because, like, I was just from, like...
Yeah, you're still acclimating.
Yeah. And it's just... Phoenix is very just... It's an interesting place. That's all I can really say.
It's like everyone is from somewhere else. Like, nobody's from here. And the people that are from here, like... I don't know. They have this weird, like, mind your own business kind of attitude, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's almost like they're trying to treat it like Arizona versus everybody else.
Yeah.
But they don't know who else is Arizona, so they're just like, fuck everybody else.
Strange. Everybody's on guard. Everybody's, like, I don't know, quiet, not willing to talk.
Unless you're down by ASU, and then it's just concerning. Like,
well, everyone by ASU is on drugs, dude.
So the first time I ever came to visit here, I went to Mill to party because I didn't know shit about fuck. I didn't know nothing. So my friends are telling me like, oh, Mill's the spot, right? Okay, whatever. I didn't realize that everyone was like essentially just a child until I got there. And I was like, you're all young college students getting absolutely obliterated right now.
Yep.
And like you're 0% self-aware. I forget the bar I was in, but I went to the bathroom and there's literally a girl in the men's bathroom doing cocaine in the mirror, like by the sink, just chilling. And I was like,
do you feel any sort of way about
like,
being here?
Do you know you're A, in the male's bathroom, B, that you're doing that publicly? Like, are you just that unaware of your surroundings right now? Like, do you not know?
How, like, do you need help? You hate yourself that much?
I mean, the funny part was when I went to wash my hands, all of a sudden, like, she got real, like, weirded out. Like, what are you doing in here? And I think that's when her brain started to put all of the pieces together as she looked around and realized there were urinals. Like, oh, I'm in the wrong bathroom. Like, dude, I meet so many people here that are just, like, interesting like that. Like,
alcoholics?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how it's...
Phoenix got a lot of alcoholics, dude.
Bro, Phoenix got a lot of people that can just handle a level of just non-sobriety that I thought was mythical. Like,
yeah, man. Being sober in Phoenix sucks.
Dude, the things that I've seen, because when I first moved here, my first job was working at a bar.
Yeah.
Bro, people are weird.
Where was the bar?
I don't know if you ever heard of the Dirty Drummer. It's like 44th and
44th Street.
44th Street and shit, what's the cross street right there? It's like 44th and Oak, I think.
Oak,
yeah. You know where Thomas is? 44th and Thomas.
Okay.
It's like that area right there. Super cool place. I loved working there. But like some of the things I'd see, like, because I worked the second shift, so like closing shift and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fun.
But it's not just there; it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere.
Oh, like, yeah, dude. That's probably like one of the more okay places, actually.
Yeah, no, and like at first I was like, "Wow, this is crazy," and then like I would go out and I was like, "Oh, that's tame!
Yeah,
holy shit!"
Way crazier shit, dude.
Like. And that's a huge difference from Buffalo and where I grew up and all of that is like when people say big city living, like I've been to New York a lot, so I'm like, oh, I get big city living. No, it is different out here.
This is Southwest's big city living.
Like this is I'm going to party for 3 days and then take a nap living. Like
maybe do some meth.
Is what it seems like.
Then you stay up for 3 more days.
Dude, I will never, I'll never wrap my head around it in the sense that like I think it's just mind-boggling how, and like it makes sense when I think about it. Like there's a lot of people that do cocaine here, and like it just seemed like such a weird thing to me. Like whenever I met somebody in Buffalo that did it, I was like, "You're fucking weird." That's fucking weird.
Wow, really?
Like, cocaine? Well, because you know how far they had to travel to get here. So you're looking at them like, that's probably just fucking Miralax, you idiot. You're going to shit in the next 15 minutes. Good job. Here, no. Like, people, like, it's real stuff. Like, it's crazy. And I get it. It's right over the border. But holy crap. I didn't understand when people are like, it's right over the border.
I think less people are doing it now.
I hope
people are scared of cocaine right now.
I think that's because of like all of the things that are happening.
Yeah, most casual users who would do it at a party are probably now turning it down.
Yeah,
like people like me who would sometimes try it out. Like I haven't in a long fucking time.
Unironically,
fentanyl thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say fentanyl helped a lot of people just kick habits. I feel
it wasn't a habit ever. I'm just saying like it was something where you. It was like somebody who'd be like, oh, would you like a bump? And I'd be like, yeah, why not?
I'm saying a lot of those casual people and even some of the people that were, heading towards that addiction, I feel the fear of fentanyl, like, just, it's a hard no.
I wouldn't anymore. I would say no immediately.
And I think that's as crazy it is as it is, I think that that's something that fentanyl, as many negative things as it did, is a positive. You know, there's not many. There's probably only like a few.
I mean, you mean to curb the rampant cocaine use?
Yes, specifically that. The fear, and again, this is fear mongering 101. The fear of something happening is powerful enough to make people alter their behavior. I just want to
be clear. The rampant cocaine use was bad, not cocaine. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
I was going to say, I'm like, I mean, I want to say that the whole thing's bad, but there's definitely somebody out there that like functions significantly better on it.
Yeah,
so like,
goddamn, cocaine's really good.
Hey man, that nose candy is pretty fucking special. Like, I'm a big fan. Good God, that
this is comedy, folks. This is comedy. I'm just fucking around. Right. We're drinking beers, having fun.
I'm rolling my eyes because I'm just waiting for somebody I know to be like, he said that. That's real. And it's like, oh goodness.
Yeah, on fucking
a podcast where we're having fun, laughing, and drinking beers.
Popular podcast in the world.
Hey man, you're the next Joe Rogan. I'm calling it now.
I have too much hair for that. Can't do that.
That is fair. That is fair. Can't be Joe Rogan.
I will try to copy him for the whole time I'm doing this podcast, though. Trying to just copy his format for as long as I can.
Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, dude.
I'm trying to get back to what we were talking about earlier with just sound in general, because like that's your whole podcast kind of format. So
most things beyond sound. Things doesn't have to be just sound. They could go beyond it too.
So the reason I say that is I'm just I want to kind of like think about, for me, the course of my life with audio, and just like I've had a lot of really cool experiences because of sound, right? Because of like production and whatnot. And I think that what a lot of people almost forget, and it's kind of why like I'm really happy to be here and be a part of this right now, is like the biggest hurdle is the first one. The hardest step is the first one. And I say that from the sense that like I never thought that I would be saying the words, I'm a paid audio engineer. Like I make money doing it. When I first started, I dreamed of that. As time moved forward, I never really thought that it would happen, just because it's such a weird industry. Oh, excuse me. But it's such a weird industry in the sense that like it's hard to get to a point where you could really make money off of it, right? And it's just crazy how if I never jumped in, I wouldn't be here. And it's just one of those things where it's like, wow, my whole life is different. Even we were talking about it earlier, but like I don't think I would be here in this moment still doing sound related things if it wasn't for people like Nick Saley, the promoter, who just a guy trying to keep local music alive.
Yeah. There's people like that here in Phoenix too. There's people like that who run the promotional companies. I still gotta have a couple of them on. There's one person named Kim. She runs 13th Floor Entertainment, or she does a lot of work for him. I don't know who actually owns it, but and then there's another guy named Adam Spleen. That's what he's known as. So I got to get him on too. He runs Immortalized Productions, but those are like the two popular like metal promoters out here that do like the local shows and stuff.
Nice.
But I got to get them on.
Bro,
but
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it's cool like hearing people's journeys in audio and like just talking to them about like their experience. And like I've had a little bit of experience of my own doing live audio, but it was pretty brief. It was like less than a year, and I was doing it with like the local union. And was doing a lot of theater performances, and like there was musical stuff. There'd be like cover bands that come in, and like it'd be like political talk show comes in on a live tour, like so it's just random show after
you
random
never know
show.
What you're gonna get. Yeah,
and it was really cool. Like I liked it, except for the fact that it was like I would get a text just saying like, here's the show time and the show date and the call and everything, and it was for tomorrow morning. You're like, oh, I guess I'm working tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
and then like after the show, you're like, I hope I get a text so I can go to work and get money to pay my rent. Like you're just waiting like day after day for the next. there'd be like a week where I didn't get work. I would be calling them like, hey, like, you guys like got shows, and they're like, nope, schedule's all dry.
That's rough.
Yeah, and it's like, well, fuck, I need a real job. So I just went and did AV. I stopped doing the live audio. It sucks because like I really liked the job. Doing it was fun, but
I'll tell it to you like this, my guy. There's definitely, if you still have the passion for it, there's definitely ways to get involved. It's more so if you really want to do it, somebody will help you find your way. And I say that from personal experience.
From what I've seen, it's the problem of how many positions are there available for audio engineers, and how many people know how to do it. You know, there's a shitload of people who know how to do it well enough to
be serviceable.
Do a speaking event, you know, and unfortunately speaking events is where you get like a lot of money, like corporate events and stuff like that. And like, so I have to wait for somebody to pass it on to me, which means I have to be the best and then wait there continuously being the best until they leave.
Oh no. And that's, it's a very tough,
like, I don't want to do that.
And I fully understand that.
I'd rather just start a podcast. Hopefully it goes somewhere.
And the thing is, man, I will say it, if I wasn't blessed to kind of land the way I did and find the things that I found, I probably would have gone more of the, not necessarily podcast, because I'll fully admit I'm a little chicken shit, so I probably wouldn't have been able to start doing this for myself. But in terms of studio, I have a ton of gear at my house that probably would have been my big, like, this is what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to try and do that because it's easier. And you're right. Like, it's hard to be a live guy if you don't know people. And the problem is people don't want to know you.
Yeah, there's only so many positions that are open, you know, and they get filled up so quick with like people who've been doing it 20 years. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of guys who've been doing it 20 years. You know, I'm never going to get there because I don't want to be an A2 for 18 years to wait my chance to be the A1.
Yep.
I'm like, no thanks. Like, I think I'll just try to make my own product and sell it that way. Maybe people will like these bullshit conversations enough. A lot of people are liking them already, so
there you go, man.
To my surprise.
And I think it's because what you're doing here is you're just being authentic.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very hard to capture a lot of the times. It's very hard to just be a genuine person, especially when you know you're being recorded or you know you're on a show. And I will commend you because you've created a very safe environment in the sense that, like, I feel like I can just be myself and have a normal, like, just fucking around kind of conversation.
Yeah, man. That's like my goal is to make it comfortable. Like, no matter what, it's just going to be like, it's going to feel like hanging out with somebody. Like, that's my goal for this show as far as like the in-house experience, you know.
Bro, if you didn't tell me that we were like sitting in front of microphones recording this, I would have just thought we were catching up talking about like crazy shit.
Yeah, dude, this is what we talk about at work. We just talk about shit like this at work all the time anyways.
And that's the cool thing.
That's why I started the Kevin and Spencer show. Because whenever me and Kevin are at work, we're always talking about politics and like crazy fucking shit going on anyway. It's like, oh, well.
Might as well record it. See what happens.
That's actually what inspired this podcast originally, like 2 years ago. We tried to do the Kevin and Spencer show and got through like 5 episodes. And the 6th one got all fucked up. And it really discouraged us. And we kind of like
took a break, so to speak.
Yeah, we kind of like took a break. It was a little too much. And we couldn't keep up the pre-production. We had to like keep finding stories to talk about, and we were trying to do it weekly, and it was just hard. Like a little too much.
Yeah,
like we're not journalists. Like we don't know how to do that.
A lot of that more news angle stuff, like you almost need a team for it.
It has to be accurate. That's like the hard part. Is like if it's not accurate, you don't know what kind of shit you're stepping into.
Yeah, you're just kind of mud pie central.
At this point though, I don't really care. If I get flagged, I'll just take the video down.
Man said, I have given up on caring. I'll just make a new video.
I mean, the last episode, the Kevin and Spencer show too, he said some
controversial,
offhanded shit about the whole Israel-Hamas conflict.
Ooh,
but, you know,
that's a hot button issue right now.
Everybody's entitled to their opinions and what they think.
Hey, bro, I commend you for taking a stand either way.
And it comes with a disclaimer, you know, I'm not a fucking expert, and I can only go off the information that I can find, you know. So I'm not there. They're not allowing journalists in there, which I think is kind of creepy in general. Like, that's kind of weird. You should let people walk in there with cameras. Why not? Because you don't want them to walk in there with cameras.
Truthfully, I think that whole situation is just so, like...
There's a lot of weird shit going on there, and there's a lot of
every day I learn more that just makes me go,
yeah,
I don't wanna, like...
And people are trying to force everyone onto the side. Like, people are trying to put everyone that exists on one side or the other. And it's like, can I just, like, not go either way?
For me, it's just like, it's a very layered conflict that's been in place for literal decades that I have missed out on. So...
further than decades.
Well, I'm talking in the modern interpretation, right? The modern version of this conflict has been
started in like the 30s.
The 30s or 40s when Israel was founded. And then like it just got like it's been happening since the Crusades. It's been happening since before then, since the Holy Land was Holy Land. Like there's
a lot
conflict.
of history I don't know.
And that's why it's like I will never fully understand all of the history over there. So I try to look at it very much in the sense that the more I personally read, the more the more conflicted I am across the board. Like it's not a great situation all the way around, and that's kind of where I want to leave that one in terms of like topic sensitivity. Mostly, like, and it's not something I don't want to talk about more. It's just one of those things that like.
Well, that's going to take a whole another hour to get through. And
exactly.
I don't know if we really have the time to open up that kind of shit.
Nah, that is I just kind
of threw it out there because the last episode we talked a lot about it, and if you really want to hear my opinion about it,
there you go. Last episode that he did of the Kevin and Spencer show, check it out.
Sure. At the end of the month when we post episode 3, it's going to be a whole nother spiel about it. So,
hey, episode 3 is going to be coming on the horizon, so watch that too.
Yeah. Trying to do it monthly, but
hey, I'm rooting for you, man. Like I was saying before, if you need some help or if there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
Yeah, I need reels. I still have 0 reels. Actually, I have 3 reels, and one of my guests, literally just screen recorded the YouTube video, and made reels out of that recording.
You can do that.
Like, more power to you, man. Hey. Like, go for it. And those reels got more reach than any single post I've ever made, like by far.
Oh yeah. Well, like, unfortunately, it's that micro interaction.
Yeah,
right?
Dude.
That's where they get you.
They don't want to promote anything but those reels. They're trying to compete with TikTok.
Well, it's the modern attention span. Like that 7 to 10 seconds is like.
But what it is they saw that TikTok fucking works. And they're like, we need a TikTok.
Well, remember, Vine failed first. So everyone's like, oh, TikTok's a joke. And then it got really big and everyone went, oh, shit, we probably should have taken this serious.
No way, dude. I've never heard anyone say Vine's a joke. I've heard everyone I've ever talked to loved Vine.
When I say Vine was a joke, I mean in terms of like how it was treated. Vine's really the blueprint for TikTok and I thought
it was the most genius app that ever lived.
It was brilliant.
When it first started, I was like, 7-second videos, like this is insane. Like it's
TikTok.
It's like forcing people into a limited,
like you have to be funny in 7 seconds. Go.
Yeah, even TikTok isn't that good.
Well, that's the thing is they were initially like that Musical.ly app. You ever hear that? I feel as though somebody realized like, oh, we can just be really entertaining for the most micro amount of time and be really like popular. Truthfully, I think that if Vine came out even 5 years after when it did, you and I would not be having TikTok conversations. Like it just wouldn't be relevant.
Yeah, probably not.
It's kind of like the PSP. It was just too ahead of its time, you know?
Or like the Zune, the Microsoft Zune.
That too ahead of its time. Too ahead of its time. There's a lot of stuff like that though.
Yeah. Like the water-powered car.
All right, now you're starting something that like I'm not trying to get shot today, bro. I'm trying to live. So I know that we can totally do it, and the technology exists, and the government is trying to censor it. So that's all I'm really gonna say about it.
Yeah, and we can manipulate granite with sound frequencies.
Brother, I'm trying to live. Okay, I don't want to die, and I'm gonna need you to try and protect my life here, because you be bringing up some stuff that the Illuminati's looking at us now.
I've been on a list, dude.
Well, now I'm on it too. So I guess thanks. Now I'm living dangerously.
All right, better wrap this up before we get shot through the window somehow.
I'm the one sitting next to it, so.
Just bomb the whole complex, dude.
And then blame terrorists.
It was Hamas. All right, till next time, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you. And I hope to be back another time, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.